was whipped by Hamas top leader, and I don't want to mention his name because he's not worthy.
I think that made a very, very big difference in there, and I want to just give a very, very special
with the electric cable.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, who really did an incredible job with this.
Every lash, I lost my breath
Negotiations, you held your lines firm, and
until I lost my consciousness.
you had a lot of alignment on.
My father was in prison at that time, and this leader thought that he was my mentor. This is Hamas discipline. This is how they wanted me to be. To become a violent savage like them. And the very basic intelligence of a child, when I felt that that was not natural, it wasn't. But I had still to go to the mosque to please my mother and please my father and obey this type of monsters. I hate to talk about my personal struggle, and I hate to be in a position to be at defense. He also don't like to be at defense, because this is what Hamas did to Israel on October 7th. They put all of us at defense.
And the courage of our soldiers who entered Gaza.
But this doesn't mean that we are not going to win the war.
Pressure that isolated Hamas, I think, has brought us to this point. I want to personally thank both of you, Steve, Jared.
Growing up in that society,
It's been long hours.
majority of the Palestinians blamed Israel. And as a child, I took it as a Quran. I took it as a holy scripture that Israel was our problem.
You put in your
But then as I grew up,
your hearts.
I start identifying the enemy within,
For the benefit of Israel and the United
the religious authorities, the corrupt leaderships,
And for the benefit of these families,
who basically did not care about children, they did not care about Palestinians, they still don't care about nobody but themselves. And the world has been empowering them against the prey, against the victims.
For a very, very long time, and we've all worked very tirelessly to do
This
that.
has to come to an end.
But I really want to say that this all would not have been possible without the bravery of
Let's
the
put my
IDF
childhood
soldiers
on the
who
side, because maybe a child does not see things for what they are. Maybe I was very bad. I misbehaved myself as a child to deserve to be beaten up again and again and again by Hamas leaders.
but particularly
And some people say,
your citizen army, I know a lot of you
is it a personal problem?
family, friends who were
Well, it is a personal problem.
really, put your
Do you have any problem with me having Hamas problem as a personal problem? It is a personal problem. And I swear I will not die before I see Hamas dead. Can I make this a goal to my life? You know, unlike many of the leaders who sit here and give Hamas legitimacy by not condemning them, if the entire world stand there and say otherwise, the child witness within will always be there, and nobody can deceive that child anymore.
There were times that I thought we should be more
Then,
flexible, or your country should be more flexible. But
as I grew up, I become the Hamas
Prime Minister Netanyahu playing it
or the Islamic student movement president in our town,
hostages, all of the hostages.
and I became part of the movement.
And we're about to achieve
It's
that.
just out of the love for my father and our family.
Without
I had no other choice,
extraordinary help of President Trump,
which somehow led me to imprisonment
they worked tirelessly
at the age of 18,
and his team.
just few weeks after my 18th birthday.
That and the
May
courage of our soldiers
28, 1996.
entered Gaza, combined military and diplomatic pressure that isolated Hamas, I think, has brought us to this point.
My problem was not Israel who arrested me
Steve, Jared,
during that experience.
it's been long hours.
It was Hamas again. but this time with a lot more brutality,
You work around the clock, but not
a lot more pain than the pain I experienced on a personal level.
put in your
In prison,
brains and your hearts.
Hamas tortured and killed hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Hamas members, because Hamas had suspicion that they were collaborating with the state of Israel. I spent 16 months in that first arrest among Hamas leaders.
Obviously, bringing the hostages home it's been a priority.
What was called Al-Majd,
For a very, very
Hamas
long time.
security wing, for those who don't know,
Tirelessly to
this
do that.
division of Hamas.
But I really want to say that this all would not have
This
been possible
security wing,
without, the bravery of
they brutally tortured
soldiers,
people,
what they've accomplished not just in Gaza, but also
putting needles under their
the
fingernails,
last couple of years to
burning plastic
eliminate
on their
Hezbollah
bodies,
and really degrade them.
putting off
Really
cigarettes
really
in
helped
their
the big
skin.
tone. But particularly seeing the way that your citizen army,
Screams of hundreds of prisoners over that period of time. How could I forget? And I don't wish for any of you to go through such experience to realize what type of monster we are dealing with. It's unfortunate that my father helped establish such an organization. And I don't mean to dishonor him. I love my father and I will always do. I'm not here to dishonor my people. I love my people.
The hard job was the Prime Minister's. He had the job of protecting this country. He had the job of making tough choices.
But I cannot believe how far Hamas
How tough
was
it is
able to
Hamas,
travel
when to be
in this
flexible,
madness,
not to be flexible.
and we could not stop them.
I think to myself all the time.
After I was released from prison, I made very hard choices.
There were times.
And I don't have the time to go through all my motives. But yes, I had many motives.
But the truth is,
Many motives to fight against Hamas, and I still do.
Prime Minister Netanyahu playing it
And nobody can get in my way.
Is to
Not even the United Nations.
hostages, all of the hostages, the living and the dead. And we're about to achieve that. We couldn't have achieved.
So the choices I made
Extraordinary help.
were against any rational mind.
Steve Witkoff, and
I end up working together with the Israeli intelligence for 10 years.
And that
We had a
the
common
courage
goal.
of our soldiers who,
That
entered
goal
Gaza and the combined
was to stop
military,
suicide bombing
diplomatic
attacks.
pressure that isolated
Hamas, for those who don't know, or those who have short memory,
Steve, Jared,
carried many suicide bombing attacks during the 90s and the early 2000s. Dozens
you work around the clock, but
of suicide bombing attacks where a suicide bomber took an explosive built into inside a bus and blew himself up, killing all type of people,
and
not only Israelis.
for the benefit of Israel,
Americans were killed,
for the benefit of these
Europeans were killed,
people, and for the benefit
other
of these
nationalities,
finally get to
including Israeli Arabs, including Muslims. Hamas did not differentiate. Take Hotel Park, for example,
Bringing the hostages home.
on a holiday, on the most sacred Jewish holiday, a suicide bomber go into the dinner, blow himself up, kill more than 30
I
people.
really want to say that this all would not have
Some Holocaust survivors died in that attack.
the IDF and the soldiers, what they've
Dolphinarium.
accomplished in Gaza.
Some teenagers having fun at the beach. Hamas suicide bomber killed about 18 and wounded dozens.
What you were able to do in Iran, it really helped set a big tone. But particularly
Look up,
seeing the way that
see how many buses.
I know a lot of you probably
It did not stop there.
who were, in
Hamas
this effort
attacked the
really
Hebrew University.
sacrifices on the line to fight for your country.
6 Americans were killed in that attack.
Try to make a difference. I think that made a very, very big difference in there. And I want to just give a very, very special thanks to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
They targeted
who,
synagogues.
really did an incredible job.
They targeted everywhere.
Did a great job with the negotiations. You
Knowing
were firm, and I think
the
that,
Israeli retaliation.
President Trump, you had a
They
lot of
invite
confidence
violence.
on
They love
what the United
violence.
States should be.
The hard job was the Prime Minister's. He had
Hamas,
the job of protecting this country.
without chaos,
He had the job of
cannot
making
survive.
choices with regard to
It's their climate. This is where they thrive.
when to be flexible. flexible, when not to be flexible.
When the peace process came,
I think to myself all the time.
if you follow the history of Hamas and their development or their evolution, whatever you want to call it,
we should be
Hamas,
flexible. Your
what
country should be
sabotaged
flexible, but
the peace process through suicide bombing attacks.
without Prime Minister Netanyahu playing it
And they don't have a vision.
Hostages,
That's the problem. Because nobody can satisfy
we're about to
their ambition when they are waging a holy war.
without the extraordinary help.
We're not talking about IRA. We're not talking about other political terrorist organizations that we can pressure them, bend them, bring them to the negotiating table.
And the courage of our soldiers
We are talking about
who entered Gaza.
a religious group that does not believe in political borders, that wants to annihilate an entire race
I want to personally thank
in order to build an Islamic state.
Jared. It's been long hours.
I don't know what else can be said about this group. And I don't know why it's not obvious to everybody that the United Nations
I think
fail
you put in
to condemn them.
your brains and your
Bunch of rapists.
we know that it's
This is what they are.
of Israel and the United States for
Lower than animal
the
consciousness.
benefit of these families who will finally get to be with their loved ones. And I want to thank you on their behalf as well, and on behalf of the people of Israel.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't speak only on the authority of that child and someone who grew up in the Palestinian territory. I also speak on the authority of someone who has 10 years of experience in a counter-terrorism of the Israeli intelligence.
All would not have been possible without the
It
bravery
took
of
us
the IDF and
8
soldiers,
years
what
to
they-
capture someone's by name Ibrahim Hamid.
but also what they've
This
done
mass
in the
murderer.
theater over the last couple of years
8
to,
years he hid in a small town of Ramallah, less than 20,000 people.
Iran. It really helps set a
It
big
took us
tone,
8 years to
but
capture
particularly
him,
seeing the way that your
while he
citizens
was sending suicide bombers every other day.
were, in this effort
It was a big nightmare to capture him.
on the line to fight for your country and to try
And you know now what they are doing? Why the hostage situation that we have in Gaza?
difference in there. And I wanna
They want him. He's on the top of the list to be released.
Netanyahu, who
Ibrahim Hamid, remember his name?
and,
Look him up.
did a great job. with the
They want mass murderers to go back to the street.
between you and President Trump, you had a lot of
And if you ask yourself,
what the end state
the guy that you saw earlier, Yahya Sinwar, with the child and the rifle,
He had the job of making tough
this guy
choices with regard
was
to
released
how tough to be
just
with Hamas,
recently,
when to be flexible, when not to be
part
flexible.
of the prisoner exchange with Israel.
All the time,
When Israel had
what
to
would I have done in
release more than 1,000 Hamas members to return one Israeli soldier back to his mother,
Your country should be more flexible, but the truth is,
and Hamas had a
I don't
taste
think we get to this place
to that.
without Prime Minister Netanyahu playing
So they thought this time they can go and bring 200 hostages and more.
all of the hostages, the living and the dead.
So they can bring the only true democracy in the Middle East to its knees.
Without the extraordinary help of President Trump and his team,
This is why it's a very brutal war. For those who are in the intelligence communities, they understand the significance of this. And they know that that Israel cannot release more Hamas terrorists. Because this guy, you saw, Yahya Sinwar,
military,
he is the mastermind
isolated
behind the attacks on October 7th.
brought us to this point. I want to
And how
personally
can
thank
Israel afford, or how can any of you
ours,
validate or prove the release of mass murderers back to the street so they can carry a lot more terrorist attacks and hijack an entire society, use hundreds of thousands of people as human shields?
your brains.
Is this our way of solving the problem?
We know that it's for the benefit
We need
of
the
Israel and
correct
the United
vision.
States, for the benefit of
First of all, we need to identify the origins of suffering, where it's coming from, where does it originate from.
as well, and on behalf of
We need to identify the disease. Then we can provide the cure.
obviously bringing
Up to this point,
is a
we haven't identified the disease. And for those who know the problem, they don't have the courage to stand and say, we have a problem with Hamas.
That this all would not have been possible without the bravery
But
of the IDF and the soldiers.
most of us have our own calculations, from Russia to China to the rest of the superpowers. Given Hamas cover,
On the north and really degrade them. What you were
Hamas
able to
gave
do
the attacks on October 7th as a birthday gift to Putin.
I know a lot of you, probably all of you, have family.
For those who did not make the connection,
This effort, really, put your sacrifices on
and I don't want to go farther.
to try to make
Now nobody's talking about Ukraine, using Hamas as the wild card in the Middle East, igniting a religious war
Mr. Netanyahu
to just divert your attention somewhere else. All those criminals, whether they were high profile or low profile, they are all savages. They are all enemies of children and enemies of humanity.
He had the job of protecting this
The United Nations and the rest of the international community have empowered
to be with Hamas,
con men
be flexible.
who used what's so-called Palestinian cause
I think to myself all the time, I lost sleep over it. What would
to
I
become
do in
richer.
those circumstances?
They were seeking power and wealth. They did not care about the Palestinian people.
Flexible, what your country should be.
As the children of Gaza
As I look back, I don't
sink
think
in despair and poverty,
Netanyahu
leaders of Hamas, along with their families and their entourage, enjoy the Four Seasons Hotel
Hostages, the living in
in Doha, Qatar.
and we're about to achieve that goal. We couldn't have achieved it without the extraordinary help of President Trump
We can continue
Steve Witkoff,
putting our head in the sand,
tirelessly with Ron,
but then
his team, our team, and
we have escaped our responsibility.
and the courage of our soldiers. Who,
I can go on and on for hours,
military and diplomatic pressure that
or should I say
isolated-
for 45, 6 years of my life.
I want to personally thank both of you, Steve, Jared,
But I don't have the time.
long hours.
I don't have the time.
You work around the clock, but now
If we don't eradicate Hamas this war and this
put
time,
in your,
if we don't eradicate them,
your brains and your hearts.
the next Gaza war
We know that it's
is going to be deadlier. It's going to be much greater.
decent
If
people.
today we are complaining about 10,000 casualties, even though I'm not sure about the numbers because it's Hamas statistics, I don't trust anything they say or anything they do. But even if it was true, it's actually a miracle that we have only this number.
it's been a priority for President Trump.
The next war,
for a
we will
very,
talking
very long
about
time, and we've all
hundreds
worked
of thousands.
very tirelessly to do that.
This
I really
is
wanna say
the
that this
fourth
all would
war
not have been possible
with Hamas and the fifth war in Gaza, because also Islamic Jihad had their own war.
accomplished not just in Gaza,
If we don't eradicate Hamas and other terrorist groups in Gaza this time
eliminate Hezbollah in the
and
north,
give
together
Gaza
with what
back
we're able
to the
do in
people
Iran,
of Gaza,
help set a big tone, but particularly seeing the way that your citizen army,
we will give them legitimacy.
probably all of you have family, friends who were in this effort.
We will show them that we are afraid.
On the line to fight for your country and to try
And tomorrow,
try
they
to
will
make a
come back
difference.
with
That made a
vengeance.
very, very big difference in there. And I want to just give a very, very special
What
thanks
made
to,
Hamas
uh,
attack
Mr.
this time
Netanyahu, who,
a lot
did
stronger
an incredible job with this.
than the past wars,
Did a
because
great job with
under the
negotiations. You held your
international
own.
pressure,
That, between you and President Trump, you had a lot of alignment.
we had
on
to negotiate
what
with
the
them.
end state should be.
The hard job was
And we had
he had the job
to give
of
them
protecting this
legitimacy.
country. He had
This
the
what
job of
encouraged
making
them and gave them power.
with regard to
You know, Qatar, for example, it's a member of the United Nations,
when not to be
playing the mediator, etc.
I think to
They
myself,
could have fooled me.
I lost sleep over it. What would
They
I
are
do
the
in
ones
those
hosting Hamas.
circumstances?
They are the ones who have been funding Hamas.
People
Russia,
more flexible.
Musa Abu Marzouk,
Should be more flexible, but the
a
truth
Hamas
is,
top
with
leader,
that, I don't
was
think
in
we
Moscow
can
just
do that
yesterday.
without Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Okay, to be more accurate, a week ago. What's this?
Hostages, all of the hostages.
Where democracies should be united
We're about to
in
achieve
fighting
that.
such savages.
We couldn't have
All
achieved
of us saw Hamas
without the
You call a hostage situation, but you want the true term Hamas uses for this? Booty. It's not even hostages. It's not war prisoners. All of us saw Hamas, savage, grab a teenager girl from the neck, pushing her into the unknown. That's your very freedom. That girl represents your freedom. And none of us thought about the mother of that kid and how she felt about seeing her daughter being dragged that way by a savage who wants to dominate, who sees women as a property. This is how Hamas sees women, a property, something they can own, as they want to own territory, more territory. Their lust, their sexual lust, their lust for power, their lust for territory.
Very tirelessly to do that. But I really want to say that this all would not have been possible.
I had to die many times in order to transcend this mentality.
Accomplished not just in Gaza, but also what they've done in the theater.
So we are talking about a big problem. It's beyond Israel.
Really degrade them. What you were able to do in Iran.
And here is the danger. And with this, I will conclude. The danger if Israel fail their war in Gaza, which is a brutal war, because if it was open war, Israel would annihilate Hamas in no time, matter of hours, let's say days. Hamas is finished. But since Hamas strategy, it's a strategic thing of Hamas to take human shields. This crime cannot be forgiven. None of us should forgive this crime. Gambling with children's blood for political gain, it doesn't get worse than this. So Israel now got stained by blood. This is what Hamas wanted to happen from day one. They wanted to sacrifice thousands of children so Israel can take the blame. Digging tunnels and bunkers under hospitals, schools, launching missiles. A Hamas misfire, how many people killed at a hospital, and they went so fast to blame Israel, and the rest of the world listened to them and listened to their propaganda. Nobody is concerned to check what is true and what is false. Whatever that serve our political and short-term interest, we go for it. Suicidal, not knowing that we are going against evolution. We are going against the collective consciousness of humanity. We're going against the interest of children, the defenseless children who has no one to speak on their behalf. They don't have the power to discern. And yes, they are dying. But who's causing all this death? Blame is the cheap way. It's the way of the coward. Those who have the courage take responsibility.
And I want to thank you on their behalf as well.
They don't blame.
Obviously, bringing the hostages home it's been a priority for President Trump.
Hamas is not defeated.
For a very, very long time.
If Hamas is not eradicated in Gaza,
to do that. But I really want to say that this all would not have been possible without the bravery of
will set the model.
Soldiers, what they've
we will give the freedom to so many radical groups around the world, especially in Europe.
Eliminate Hezbollah in the north.
Because many of ISIS
what you were able to do in Iran, it really helped set a big tone.
Have fled to Europe under civilian cover.
Probably all of you have family, friends who were.
They are sleeping cells in Europe. And there is a migrant problem in Europe,
difference. I think that made a very
and there is
big
an Islamic
difference.
problem in Europe.
I want to just give a very, very special thanks to
And this is just a warning.
Netanyahu, who,
If you really
did an incredible
care
job with this, and,
for the global security,
did a great job with the negotiations.
and I speak as a person who was part of the counter-terrorism effort against radical Islamists,
What the end state should be.
The hard job was the Prime Minister's.
if Hamas is not defeated in Gaza,
Had the job of making tough choices.
it will inspire many groups around the globe.
Be with Hamas.
They will see that
Be flexible when not.
few thousands of savages
I think
can
that's-
blackmail the international community, the superpowers, and bring democracies to their knees.
we should be
Many of them are watching now,
more flexible.
and many of them are very happy about how the world is responding. And many of them are satisfied to see the state of confusion
Hostages,
and fear
hostages,
and anxiety.
and we're about to achieve that goal.
This is the time to get united,
Without the extraordinary help
because
of President Trump and
if Israel fails in Gaza,
and Jared Kushner, they work tirelessly.
All of us.
with Ron and his team, our team,
we will be next.
and
Thank you for listening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
who entered Gaza.
May God bless all of us and protect our children, not only the Palestinian children, but also the Israeli children. Bring the hostages back to their families, and may God bring peace to this divided world. Thank you very much for listening.
For the benefit of Israel and the United States, for the benefit of decent people everywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only correction I'd make, first of all, it's Speaker Klein and the entire Jerusalem Post staff, thank you for inviting us, having us take part on behalf of Mossad and myself. The only correction I would make is it's not an interview, this is a discussion. And it's a discussion that involves every single person in this room. We tried to get a table at the Wolf and Lamb down the street for 500 people, but they said they had just given it away. So we have to do it here. But there's, at this particular moment, in the few minutes that we have to talk about a problem and a solution, as Mossad said very wisely downstairs, we really have to think out of the box. Because the post-October 7th reality puts us in a completely new world, breaking misconceptions, building new realities. And at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, which is today renamed the Jerusalem Center for Foreign Affairs, for the first time in our over 50-year history, we see ourselves as the engine for Israel's foreign affairs, serving as a bridge between the West and the Arab Muslim majority East. And in that context, after our October 7th, we were surprised by what is known in the literature of terrorism and war as a strategic surprise. 9/11, Pearl Harbor, October the 7th. And what shocked us at the Jerusalem Center for Foreign Affairs was the glee, the energy, the enthusiasm for Hamas in the free world. Because on the face of it, had there been an opportunity to understand what Israel had faced in terms of ongoing terror, 5 terror wars that had been prosecuted by the Hamas, 5, beginning in 2008, 2009, and decades of terror by the PLO before that, an empirical understanding that the Oslo experiment had arguably brought us to the moment that exploded on October the 7th. And what we did at the Jerusalem Center was to have a poll to understand another surprise. And that surprise is, why is it that there is such a tremendous expectation in the US-led Western Alliance for a Palestinian state on the heels of the worst massacre and mass murder in modern political history on a single day of any democratic country? And that taught us that we have to free ourselves from misconceptions. meaning that the free world, in large part, including from the highest levels of the American government to opinion shapers, media, Jewish community, by the way, and others, believe that this is an extension of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Our understanding and Israel's understanding as a national consensus issue is completely different. And as I turn to Mossab, I want to say the following, that in many cases, in the Western discourse, Israel has been recast as the Hamas, and Hamas, from point of view of virtue, legitimacy, justice, has been recast as Israel. This inversion of legitimacy has been taking place over the last 31 years. And it is time that we stop defending ourselves intellectually, morally, and we must go from defense to offense, from intellectual defense to assertive diplomacy. And when I thought about who would be the best thinker, because Mossab Hassan Youssef is not only a fighter on Dr. Phil, he's a thinker, a deep thinker, who has profound ideas together with other JCFA scholars, our Vice President Abiram Belaish, Hussein Abu Bakr Mansour, Dalia Zaida here in the front row. Because what we understand is that Israel is an indigenous member of the Arab Muslim Middle East, and that is our new positioning, ladies and gentlemen. We are not part of an Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That does not define us anymore. So I want to turn, thank you. I want to turn to my friend and a teacher, Mossab, to help us understand, as the Middle East comes to the West to talk about the Middle East, instead of the West telling the Middle East what the Middle East should be doing. Help us understand from an ideological, religious, and strategic point of view of the dangers of another Palestinian state post-October the 7th, in a sense that the West is missing something.
First of all, good evening to everyone. It's good to be here. Well, I guess we are awake. I was worried for a moment. Such a big question, and it's not an easy answer. Oh, I know that the Jewish slaughter on the hands of Muslims has been going for approximately 14 centuries. And for some reason, the Jewish people are in denial. I understand why. Because if the Jewish people admit that, then they will have to confront a majority of Muslims. And this is why we are at defense right now. From the early beginning of the war and prior to the war, I came to realize that the ideological dimension of this war cannot be ignored. And I got canceled many, many years ago, some 15 years ago, when I started criticizing and questioning the scripture in Islam that encourages Muslims to harm and kill Jewish people. And I think the Jewish people are a very peaceful nation that does not look to harm the Muslims. But at least I think that we have the right, you have the right, to question and say, what's going on here? Why the scripture is inciting against the Jewish people, and what the world is doing about it. What other major religions is doing about it. And this is why I changed my strategy, that this is not only about Palestine. Palestine is non-existential. It's just a device that the Muslims use as a weapon against Israel and as a weapon against the Jewish people. Fundamentally, Muslims think that Allah hates the Jewish people. And how can they love the Jewish people if their God that they bow 20 times a day hates the Jewish people? So I am not here to speak against the Muslims, but I want you to be aware of this fundamental problem, at least in your subconscious. You need to have this somewhere, that we have an existential threat. And now you see it in reality, how they were able to just turn the narrative against Israel in no time. And this is why from the beginning of the war, I said, Muslims, you have to back off. This is not acceptable to take the side of a terrorist group that just committed a genocide, a capital crime, unforgivable crime, by the name of resistance and by the name of occupation, colonialism, etc. Not acceptable. And now we have hundreds of millions of Muslims and Arabs spreading propaganda. And as you see, when people see it thousands of times per day, they start believing in it. It becomes real. So it is the time to move from defense to offense, to call things for what they are, to see them for what they are, and there is no need to be afraid. There is no need for us to be depressed. I have been fighting against Islam alone, by myself, for so many years. And I don't need the permission from nobody. If they want me to cease to exist, this means that I have to fight for my life. And you are in the same position right now. I'm not calling for a religious war. There has been a religious war. And it's about time to wake up. I'm not saying that we go on a war with the Muslim people, but at least we need to educate the rest of the world that we are in danger. Some people out there, hundreds of millions of them, want us dead. And we have to defend ourselves. Hamas is not only acting on their own. They belong to the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood belongs to a religion. And that religion has a scripture. And it's about time to open the books for the rest of the world. The majority of the world are with the Jewish people. Hinduism, they understand the Islamic danger. Buddhism, Buddhists, Christians, and it's about time. We need some help from the big majority religions to stand with us, because this is existential fight. And if we don't win, it is going to be a disaster. The whole globe is going to go into chaos. I did not mean to talk about Islam this much, but in my opinion, Palestine, the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of them are inspired by the same death cult. Yasser Arafat was a Muslim Brotherhood. Abdullah Azzam was a Muslim Brotherhood. Osama bin Laden was a Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood. All of them are Muslim Brotherhood. So we have a big problem that we need to wake up. And if we don't keep ignoring and denying the existential threat, then we will have to face it eventually when it's too late. Palestine depends on the destruction of Israel. If there is any definition of Palestine, it means the absence of Israel. This is what Palestine is. And now, they got legitimacy somehow. But we ask them the question, what is Palestine? Is it an ethnic group? Is it a religion? Is it a distinct language? Do you have scripture? Are you a nation? Were you a country? None of that. So what is Palestine? And what is the purpose of Palestine? So for those who are representing the two-state solution, and I try to conclude, they want Israel to cease to exist, or they are not aware of this existential threat. Because in my opinion, Hamas is a small threat comparing to the Palestinian Authority. All this global chaos is managed by the Palestinian Authority, by the PLO. It's not Hamas propaganda. is the one who sits in Ramallah, pay all the advocates worldwide through their embassies. Those are the ones who are fighting against Israel's legitimacy. So we need also to be aware of this big problem.
This is a really... First of all, Mossab just answered the following 6 questions that I had. So
My apology. I get carried away.
Get him a bottle of Evian here. You know, this is a real bombshell, because the numbers that I've been fiddling with, what we did at the JCFA, is a poll in the last few days that showed that in Israel, 69% on October 6th opposed a Palestinian state. On October 8th, 79% of Israelis oppose a Palestinian state, which they understand will be a third Palestinian state that would be, as Hamas's commanders have said, after October 7th, we will do October 7th again and again and again. I quote the top leadership of the Hamas. And everyone in this room may know that the polling numbers in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, on behalf of Hamas are overwhelming in their support. So it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Hamas today is the recognized leader of the Palestinian street. Would that be correct?
All of the hostages.
They won the last election.
In 2005. In 2006.
And that was the last election.
And that was
Actually, they are the legitimate leadership of the Palestinians.
So Houston and New York, we've got a major problem, because well over 60% of the Jewish community, and even more of the general community, in addition to policy elites, government, media, in this country, are expecting tomorrow morning a Palestinian state. And we're talking about the day after. What is the day after in Israel? The day after is right now. Because there not be a day after unless, in the view of the vast majority of Israelis, if Hamas is not defeated completely as a military and political power. That message, that idea, seems to be lost in the American discourse. How do you understand that, Mossab?
This is not the only thing lost in this misunderstanding of the problem. There is no way for Israel. I just came back from Israel, and I know the Israeli street vibe. I met with thousands of people on the street. I talked to so many people, and nobody can afford a Palestinian state that is hostile to Israel. What happened on October 7 cannot be ignored. And I have been warning against this issue. You cannot give them Judea and Samaria. You cannot give them the mountains. You cannot sacrifice the Jordanian valley. This is a defense line. And I speak from security point of view. You see, I speak now like a right-wing Jewish extremist. But this is my understanding. Look, I have 10 years of counterterrorism experience on a regular basis. We are dealing with explosions, suicide bombers. The situation was out of control. This is my background, and when I think with a security background. And we cannot afford the masses of Arabians just invading, breaking the fence, and all of a sudden, what is that? 10 mile? What's
9 miles? Israel's waste at 9 miles at Tukar.
Okay. And up to this point, the Palestinian Authority has sponsored terrorism. They encouraged terrorism. Yasser Arafat was a terrorist. I was in his meeting when he gave my father the authority to blow up buses, markets, beaches during the Second Palestinian Intifada. It was the piece of information that I gave to the Israeli Shin Bet that was provided to the United Nations to condemn Yasser Arafat as a terrorist. I was in that meeting. And we are talking about a con artist, Egyptian con artist, that is the father of the Palestinian cause. So now we are dealing with an ideology. Palestine is not a country. It should not get more legitimacy because it's only an ideology. And this ideology needs to be countered. As long as the false narrative is there, it will keep rolling like a snowball, and we will have to deal with the consequences. So now, I agree with them that our strategy should shift from defense to offense. We need to expose the false narrative. And when the world understands that there is no such thing as Palestine, that is just a false narrative. And the Palestinian entire narrative is the victim narrative that has nothing to do with reality, self-inflicted pain. This is what they've been doing. They brought themselves here, they brought the whole world here. It's not Israel's responsibility. Once we are able to mobilize Hollywood, journalism, everybody to bring the truth of this scam, political scam, then we may have a better chance to communicate with these people. But as long as they are living in this fantasy, we are not able to communicate with them. We are not able to please them or satisfy their ambition because it's a black hole.
For a very, very long time. And
You give them East Jerusalem tomorrow, then they are going to say, we want West Jerusalem.
say that this all would not have been
If you give them the 1967, they are going to say, I want the whole thing. And they will continue to be a hostile. So now, we are in trouble. It's a big problem. It is a big problem. So,
Hezbollah in the north and really big
is there a solution? And Dan and I, we've been discussing this. Yes, there is a solution. But first of all, we have to get anchored in the truth and face reality, face things as they are. As long as we try to escape it, we are not able to provide a good solution for this problem.
a very, very
I
big
just want to
difference in there. And I want to just give a very, very special thanks to
we would be remiss if we moved on to the last few minutes about solutions, and there are solutions. As a matter of fact, I remember very well back in 2006, the Jerusalem Center, at that time for Public Affairs, at the permission of my former boss, Dori Gold, we brought Jordanians and Palestinians to Washington to talk about a federal approach to Palestinian, Israeli, Jordanian diplomacy. That is not to say, if His Majesty is watching from Amman, it is not to say that Jordan is Palestine for policy purposes, not to frighten anyone, but it is to say that there are confederal approaches to living together, to diplomacy, to prosperity, security, and stability. But we would be remiss, ladies and gentlemen, if we did not go on the record and say what happened on October 7th was financed, supplied, strategized, and armed by the IRGC and the Iranian regime in Tehran. And we cannot allow this to go, as what they say, לעבור את זה סדר-היום. Iran is the epicenter of what has happened before October 6th, after October 6th, the first direct attack on Israel by the Islamic Republic of Iran on October the 14th, and they're the taskmasters, the paymasters, the inspirers of Hamas, though they are Sunni, and also the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, though they are Sunni, the Houthis, the Hezbollah, etc. That is the address, and that is the epicenter of the strategic attack on Israel, which they remind us and have reminded us every day for the last 45 years as the little Satan that they will destroy us on the way to destroying who? The big Satan, the United States. So I wanted to go on record as having that in context, just for a couple of minutes to talk about other possibilities, because many people in this room and in Israel, they say, in Hebrew, they say, maken, maken. What is possible? There are many pathways to stability, security, because we have neighbors. We have Palestinian Arab neighbors, Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, 1,500,000. We have 2 million Palestinian Gazans, and there are ways in order to create secure and amenable, even friendly ways of living together. Share some of your ideas, Musa, before we have to leave the stage.
eliminate Hezbollah in the north and really degrade them.
There are Arabs.
Iran really
I don't think that they're Palestinians. They're just carrying a false identity around. We are not Palestinians. When I was born, I had a Jordanian birth certificate, as millions of the people who were born there. So, first of all, we need to ask the people, what makes you a Palestinian? You are Arab. This is your ethnicity. And I don't think there is a problem between Arabs and Jews to get along. We have 2 million Arabs in Israel, even though I am not sure about their loyalty. And this is something also need to be taken into consideration. What we need a solid police force. We don't need 40 or 50,000 armed militia with Kalashnikovs all over the place protecting the governing authority. What do I want to do with all this? So first of all, we must disarm the Palestinian Authority. We don't need so many guns. We need a police force that is not corrupted, that can keep order for the Palestinians. Then it can assure Israel's security. Mahmoud Abbas will die sooner or later. The man is at the edge of collapse. And everybody is counting on Mahmoud Abbas. What's the day after Mahmoud Abbas? Who's going to rule the show? Who's going to be the player? They are conflicted people. So counting on the Palestinian Authority is a form of insanity. This is for the people who just like putting their head in the sand. They're not realizing. We are betting on a dying thing. Actually, it's already dead. So we need to find an alternative. And what we need a police force. And by the way, my wild opinion, let Arab rule Arab. How about mandatory recruitment to the Arabs, to the Israeli Arabs, to rule the Arabs in the West Bank? One solution. Okay, not so many enthusiasm for this. But Arabs know how to deal with Arabs. It's not Israel's fault to manage the Arab madness. If it's not that, it could be the Jordanian intelligence, it could be the Egyptian intelligence, it could be a confederation with Jordan, with Egypt. It could be whatever, but not the Palestinian Authority as is today. This arrangement I don't like, because they are deceptive, they are double-faced, they are untrustworthy, and they are hostile to Israel wherever they go. With that said, we need an alternative, and I think there is a possibility of a loyal, responsible force in the West Bank that will take care of the security not only of the Arabs of Judea and Samaria, but also of the Jewish state security needs. This is on one hand. On the other hand, economy. The world has been investing so much money into the Palestinian Authority. And look at their operation. Worldwide embassies, delegations, ambassadors. How much is that budget, the annual budget, only to pay for the Palestinian Authority ambassadors and their entourage? Instead of all this, the Arabs in the West Bank don't need all this money spent, hundreds of millions of dollars on nonsense. We could have directed that money to build the economy for the generation in the West Bank. And this is where we need to shift strategy. Then, education. Education, I'd start with educating the Arabs of the West Bank on the Holocaust. This should be mandatory for every Arabian to learn from the Jewish experience, that never be a victim, to rise above pleasure, to rise above pain. This is the model that inspires me. But to stay a victim in victimhood, this is not acceptable. So Palestine is not going to solve the human condition in the West Bank. It is not going to solve the problem. Actually, it's creating more problems. With that said, we need to really have a deep look into the situation and be honest with ourselves. Is this serving the Arabs? Is this serving the Jews? Is this securing the future of the generation or not? Then after that, we make our decisions. Thank you, and I appreciate your patience.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Musab, very much. It was great. Thank you.
You worked around the clock, but not only worked, I think you...
Tu festival mana, McDonald's बर्गर फ्राइज और कोक सिर्फ 99 में पा
McDonald's के festive meals starting at just 99 rupees.
For the benefit of
Happy New Year and welcome to the TBN Israel podcast. Mati, I want to wish you
Shana Tova, Yair.
Shana Tova and
Happy
an
New
amazing
Year.
2025.
So the backstory behind this is we've been challenging Micah on our team to have an ever-increasing cup because it bothers our producer. And he's so far risen to the challenge every week on week.
Definitely. But now we have to put it aside because it takes, I think, half of the
It blocks
frame.
our
You know,
shots.
like, so it's got to be here. But good job, Micah.
So Yair, we're talking about something a little different today.
I think it's going to be very interesting.
Not just one topic.
Yeah.
Since we've transitioned from 2024 to 2025, we want to talk about who are the top-tier enemies of the state of Israel.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to summarize who are the enemies that did the most damage, physical, emotional, economically, the amount of frequency of the attacks, rockets, propaganda, and cyber warfare, the remaining capabilities to attack Israel again, like potential threats for 2025. These are the criteria that we're going to rank our enemies.
And the reason we're doing this is because everything's changed.
Definitely.
This is what's important.
Yeah.
Is that what we would have ranked a year ago is completely different than what we would have ranked now. What we would have rated 18 months ago would have been a completely different map. So we want to help everyone frame the conversation of what has happened and who's standing and what their potential damage to the state of Israel can be in the year to come.
But before we're going to start, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tomer. But before we're going to start, please click that subscribe button so that you'll never miss an episode of Boots on the Ground, TBN Israel, the podcast, In Our Neighborhood, or My State. These are the programs that we have now. Stay tuned to what's happening in Israel and pray for the situation.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and then just to give people the trigger to also subscribe, we have a website. And on that website, you'll see the articles come up on a daily basis. The link is below. It's the tbnisrael.com. tbnisrael.com is our website. And just to give you a glimpse of what's happening this coming week on the YouTube channel, to encourage you to subscribe, we have an exclusive. Yair and I visited Manara, which is one of the communities worst damaged and hurt.
It's the closest Israeli community to Lebanon. It's right on the border.
It's a beautiful, touching episode. I must tell you, I watched it last night and I couldn't hold my tears, even that
so it was a very touching and moving experience for us visiting the place. Then we have an interview airing over the weekend where I interview Sapir Cohen, who is one of the most encouraging and unique of the hostages that's been released.
She's a hostage that was released in the first phase of hostage exchanges, like not hostage exchange, but prisoner exchange with Hamas. It was, I think, over a year ago.
Yeah, and I was in tears interviewing her. She was a touching and deeply impressive individual. That's also airing on the weekend. And then countless other pieces, including daily news updates.
By the way, about the hostage episode, we couldn't cut even a minute out of that. So we're going to put the full interview.
Talking about what?
The full interview. It's going to be the full episode with a full interview. It was a beautiful piece.
Yeah. So back to today's topic. So when we have regular content that's being released on the website and on the YouTube channel, so we're encouraging everyone like, share, subscribe, the usual stuff.
Help us a lot.
Let's zoom back into the topic. Our topic today is who are our enemies and what's their ranking. And we'll start from the top. And the top is, if you want to give a drum roll,
the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Exactly. And the Islamic Republic of Iran. And we say this because we've, over the past year, we're trying to differentiate in the way people perceive who the Iranians are. The Iranian people don't necessarily, or are not,
majority of them don't hate us.
The Iranian people are by definition not necessarily represented by the Iranian government.
For sure.
And you'll hear this from the Iranian people, you hear this from experts on Iran. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the Iranian Islamic government, doesn't represent the will and the desires of the Iranian people. So when we're talking about Iran, what we mean is the agenda, the actions of the Iranian government. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And we're talking about their leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and his threats, nuclear threats against this region, against Israel, and against their role in funding and supplying weapons to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to the Houthis, to Iranian militias in Iraq and also in Syria, and up until a few weeks ago. and they are still number one of the options that we have, the contenders for being Israel's most dangerous enemies. Okay,
So
second.
let's step back. Let's talk about who Iran really is.
You don't want to like list them and then go one
You
by
want to
one?
go all the enemies? Fine.
Let's list them and then go all
if we
them.
must.
Okay, number 2.
Our good friends, the Hezbollah. Oh, I should say they were our good friends, the Hezbollah. They're no longer with us in the way they were before.
For sure.
What's left of them is, if we were comparing this to the automotive industry, they are a pile of car wrecks, not a car lot.
Pieces that still trying to assemble themselves
not a car
together.
Lot. Hezbollah were the big enemy and big threat up north, and they're no longer the big enemy.
Yeah.
They're no longer really up north, and they're no longer really existent. So that's number 2 on our list.
Yeah. Number 3.
The
Houthis, the flip-flop wearing Houthis from Yemen.
I have a joke. This is Alon's joke. What is a Mexican man who wears sandals? What is his name?
Not only work,
Felipe Felope.
put in.
Very good, Mati. Very good, Mati.
Alon's joke.
I want to apologize on behalf
Don't
of
apologize on my
that
behalf.
jokes of Mati.
I stand behind my joke 100%. It was Alon's joke. I've been laughing about it for 3 days. Anyway, so the Houthis out of Yemen. They're so weird and so niche of an enemy.
Yeah.
That the other day when there was one of those rocket attacks, I had to sit my kids down because they were really confused about who was firing rockets at us.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to explain.
And they said it's coming because it was the day before it was Hamas, then the day after there was the Houthis again,
yeah.
And then so they said something about this is the Hezbollah. I said no, it's not Hezbollah. So who is it? Hamas?
Yeah.
No, Houthis. Where are the Houthis? So I had to open up a map and try to explain who the Houthis are, why they don't control Yemen. We'll get to it. It's complicated. Wait, there's more.
We have now the Palestinian terrorism.
Yes.
Which is a big sector because there's multiple Palestinian terrorist groups that operate in the Israeli area.
First and foremost on that list were, of course, Hamas. Hamas, which is, again, we'll break that down. They've been dramatically diminished as a fighting force.
Yeah.
Dramatically. And then underneath them you have Islamic Jihad, you have a ton of let's call it local militias that are fighting us. It's not in any list. The common denominator behind all of these people is one way or another, they're weaponized, they're trained, they're funded by our good friends, the Iranian government.
Yeah, this is the common denominator for all of these groups, basically. Yes, but we'll see who is also, responsible and which group is and did the most damage to Israel in the past year. So
we'll add one thing is, and we were talking about this before we started rolling, is what we don't know is what we really don't know. And I'll explain that statement.
Definitely, I agree 100%. I don't know what I don't know.
In your case, I'm just kidding. When we're looking into 2025, we know about these enemies, and all of them seem like they're weakened. All of them seem like they're mostly controlled, and the risk is mitigated. But the way we've learned in the last year is that you definitely don't know what can come.
Yeah.
And the number of players that have been moving and the pieces moving on the table is just changing on almost a daily or weekly basis. And if you look at Syria, for example, Syria was an enemy state to Israel, led by a dictator for over 50 years. And in a matter of weeks, 10 days, the government is overthrown, the dictator flees the country, and the entire country is taken over by HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, a terrorist organization previously affiliated with Al-Qaeda, led by Al-Julani, or that was his previous name.
What's his name now?
He changed it twice in the last week. I can't keep track anymore.
Now he's wearing suits, by the way.
Yeah,
looking sharp.
We'll stick with Al-Julani until he changes it in his social security card.
Now he looks like Assad with a beard.
He's been rebranding on a weekly basis, Al-Julani. He takes over the country, so things have been moving here so rapidly, and we'll get to this at the end, to the, let's call this speculation and conspiracy part, because we really don't know who is going to be the big enemy next year. What we do know...
It can be even a surprise, like the Houthis, came from nowhere, so we can have kind of a same situation.
We'll get to that. So let's start with Iran.
Well, before that, I want to add another contender to the list, Mati, and that's all the anti-Israel and I like to say pro-terrorist protests around the world. And I think this is a major contender in this, contest, because it's ideologically and it's anti-Semitic trends that are moving, and they're moving in the best universities in the world, and it's something that we should address because it will affect every society, even in the West.
Yeah. So a trend that we follow here, a common thread in everything we talk about, is the fact that this war is not just a war that is explained by politics or geopolitics or diplomacy. It's both spiritual and it's narrative-based.
Yeah.
And a big element in everything that we've been fighting for the last year is the fact that the hatred of Israel and the anti-Semitic rhetoric and emotion that comes out of that, mindset it's diabolical. It comes from a dark and evil place, whatever you believe in, by the way.
Definitely.
It can't be explained by rationale. There is no logic in the level of hatred, and the actions taken by those who hate Israel in a disproportionate way dramatically affect the way the world talks about this. You see it in CNN, you see it in BBC, you see it in the UN court, in the UN Security Council and the General Assembly, you see it in the UN agencies that deal with it, you see it in campuses across the world. A disproportionate hatred of the people of Israel.
Definitely, you see it at the United Nations resolutions against Israel compared to all the countries that are funding terrorism in this world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely, weird. It doesn't make any sense. The only thing I can make sense of it is that this is a spiritual war,
Both.
which actually encourages me personally, to know that it aligns with the Bible prophecies and with the fact that the enemy wants to destroy Israel because Israel is a symbol of God's faithfulness.
Yeah, we'll break this down more in depth.
Yeah. But these are the contenders that we have.
These are the main players. And then we're also going to address the question of the hostages. Because we can't talk about 2024, we can't talk about 2025 without addressing the 100 hostages that remain alive and some of them dead in Hamas captivity within the Gaza Strip. They're very important. They're close to the hearts of us, our team, and everyone in Israel. So we're gonna talk about that. That's, by the way, that's something we've taken as a team as a goal for this year, is to really maintain the story of the hostages at the forefront of everyone's minds and hearts, because this isn't just a war about what army is doing this and what army is doing that. We have our children, our wives, our husbands, our grandparents who were murdered, kidnapped, and held hostage for now over, 470?
400 and I think it's like 60 now, 460.
Anyway, so
can I ask you something,
months.
Mati?
Yeah.
After the meeting, something changed in what you feel about...
Before the meeting.
Before the meeting.
Before we've talked about this, maybe a couple months ago, I spent an entire weekend, I was reading some of the stories of the hostages that came out, and it was just sitting heavy on my heart, very heavy. The fact that we need to do more as a team to make sure people know about what's happening with the hostages.
Yeah.
And I felt condemned, even personally, guilty for the fact that I was going on with life as if it was business as usual, while my brothers and sisters are remaining in
a tunnel somewhere.
In a tunnel, rotting away somewhere in Hamas.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into Israeli domestic politics because it gets very complicated when you do that. I'll just say that it is crucial for every Israeli, every non-Israeli, every person with a conscience around the world to say that, look, forget the geopolitics, forget the war, forget the big picture. At the end, there are 100 people that are rotting away in tunnels, in caves, in basements, receiving terrible, terrible treatment by Hamas. They're not combatants, they're not soldiers, they were people kidnapped simply for the sake of being Israelis. I don't say Jews, by the way, because also non-Jews were kidnapped.
Yeah,
Bedouins,
definitely.
Muslims, they were kidnapped too by Hamas terrorists. Many of them,
U.S. nationals and other, international community people were kidnapped.
Yeah, and Tomo, thank you for derailing my thought process.
No, I think it's important. You had a first-hand meeting with
we spent a lot of time. So it's interesting. We actually knew Hirsch Goldberg's parents before the war started. You knew Hirsch personally.
I know.
I worked with his father on a project where we several times met here in this very building before the war started. So this is not, again, Israel's a tiny country. We all know these people.
Hirsch, by the way, was one of the, more known hostages. He's from Jerusalem. He's dual Israel and U.S. national. His parents went to the United States. He spoke with President Biden multiple times.
He's a real Jerusalem.
He was murdered by Hamas just a few hours before the IDF was able to enter the tunnel that he was held in, the Gaza Strip, just to give a background story.
I still remember what I felt that day.
I
I think every person in this country, was choking back tears the day we heard the hostages were killed. Because again, there were too many hostages to remember all the faces, although we should remember all the faces. But there were a handful where the parents just went above and beyond in their ability to muster international support. And Hirsch was one of them. There were several others in that case.
Yeah.
And then, Tomo, to your point, we talked to Sapir Cohen a week and a half ago. A week and a half ago, spending a good couple hours with her. One, I was just like looking at some of her past reports and testimonies before I met with her. I was crying, like I couldn't stop crying that morning. And then meeting with her in person, to feel the hardship and the pain that people experience in captivity and the injustice. Again, there's things we assume when we go into war. Innocent people are going to be hurt. There's just no way around it. We try to minimize it as it happens. Combatants are going to be killed. But these are people who did nothing. These are people who were visiting their grandparents and were kidnapped out of their beds at 6 a.m. by terrorists and dragged into Gaza, threatened with rape, threatened with violence, starved, beaten. It's just horrific. Anyway, all that to say is this is a topic that will remain in our minds, on our hearts.
Definitely. And since you had that, urge to do more for the hostages, every boots on the ground report ends with a personal story about one hostage. To make it personal, when you pray, you can pray for that hostage personally. Okay, so let's go on.
Iran?
Yeah, Iran. Okay, number one in the list, the Islamic Republic of Iran. Let's do it step by step. Okay, damage caused to Israel. So physical, emotional, and economic. What did they do to us?
So Iran have been the big bad guy for a very long time. They've been pushing for a nuclear program, not for peaceful reasons. Let's be honest,
definitely not. Yeah, because they've been, at the same time developing their rocket launching capabilities, specifically the rockets that can carry a nuclear payload.
Yeah, and we often, and I was thinking about this in the last couple of weeks, we often quote the numbers of what they funded Hezbollah with. So they're the ones behind Hamas, they're the ones behind Hezbollah, they're the ones behind the Houthis and countless other terrorist attacks. And we always throw that big number, it's $1 billion a year for Hezbollah.
Yeah.
But they spend on the IRGC, they spend, people need to understand this. They spend the GDP of like many countries' budget. They spend tens of billions of dollars a year on the IRGC alone.
Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps.
Yes, and so the IRGC is a para-governmental, paramilitary organization whose sole task is to destabilize and export terrorism.
Yeah, and export the Islamic Revolution of Iran
to the rest
of the world by funding terrorist groups with ideology, with weapons, with training, and with money.
Yeah, and when you look at the fingerprints of the Iranian government, aside from what they do within Iran, and we'll get to that in a second, they're behind Hamas. They trained Hamas terrorists, the Nukhba terrorists, which are the Hamas elite forces that flooded across the border into Israel to murder, maim, and kidnap Israelis on the morning of October 7th, 2023. Many of them were physically trained within Iran.
Yeah.
This needs to be understood because people forget this. Definitely. They traveled through Sinai because we allowed them, as in like the Hamas and the Egyptians, to control the Philadelphia corridor. Just remember that in the back of your head.
Yeah.
They traveled out of the Gaza Strip and out into Iran. Some of them in Syria were trained, some of them in Lebanon. Many of them trained in Iran, in explosives, in
urban
QCB,
warfare,
in close quarters combat, in many, many different things.
Rocket launching capabilities, manufacturing rockets.
Yeah, manufacturing drones.
Yeah.
So again, they're physically exporting terrorism to every corner of anyone who's willing to cooperate with them, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not limited to the Arab world. And they've done this at a cost that is tens of billions of dollars per year.
Yeah.
And not only that, they've manufactured mechanisms, the Houthis are an example of that, of disrupting world trade.
Yeah.
So when you think of what does the IRGC Navy look like, it's speedboats, it's not ships. Why is it speedboats? Because they want to use piracy methodology against trade going through the Bab el-Mandab Straits or the Hormuz Straits.
Yeah, it's a small boat that doesn't cost a lot, with easy to train people, and then causes a lot of damage to big boats that are basically merchant ships.
Yeah,
with no way of defending themselves.
So first and foremost, the Iranians, what they're an exporter of terrorism and violence. And that's what they've done, and they've done it systematically. We've talked about this many times. They've done this at the expense of the Iranian people.
Always. It's always the case,
Yeah, they're hurting the Iranian people. They're taking away the money from the Iranian people. They're using extreme violence. And we've interviewed several experts on Iran recently, and we're going to have more content on this topic coming. talking about the fact that the Iranian people suffer dramatically because of the violence of their regime. So first and foremost, and this is the theme with every one of these organizations, they suffer first. Before they reach Israel, before they disrupt shipping trades, shipping routes and all that stuff, the people who suffer are the people of those countries on every level. Then the Iranians, so they've attacked us through Hezbollah, they've attacked us through Hamas, through the Houthis, but they've also, for the first time ever, attacked us directly this year.
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
A few times directly with rockets, with drones, and with cruise missiles.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah, from Iran.
Yeah.
And propaganda, they are also invested a lot in propaganda against Israel, in Western countries and other places. And cyber warfare also. We had some cyber attacks that were affiliated to Iran. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tomer? Yeah. It didn't really disrupt our lives here, but it affected.
I put you down in green.
Yeah.
What the exact ones?
So the Iranians, if we look at their overall effect and their overall power in this region, they've gone, let's say they were at an 8 or a 9 at the beginning of the October 7th offensive on their end. I would place them somewhere in like a 2.5 or 3 right now. They've lost the majority of the assets that were holding. They had a doctrine called the Ring of Fire, where they would try to surround Israel, so they would have, what's the term? There's a term from the Cold War that's called mutual guaranteed annihilation, or something along those lines. I forget what it is exactly in English, where essentially it says, like, whatever you do to me,
I'll do to you.
I'll do to you 10 times over. So we were assured,
if you attack me, both of us are dead.
Yeah. So the Iranians placed all these pawns around us: the Hezbollah, the Hamas, the Syrians, all these different militias, and even within Israel, with the purpose of preventing Israel or dissuading Israel from going after them, for fear of retaliation through proxies. And this year, they've lost a dramatic number of those proxies. And the list is long. I mean, they've lost their investment in Hamas, excuse me, their investment in Hezbollah, their powers that be in Syria, a lot of the other assets that they had in the region, and even their assets within Houtistan, which isn't in another place. Houtistan. Within Houthi-controlled land. Houthi land in Yemen. That isn't really a term.
Yeah, but they still have an arsenal of ballistic missiles that is considered the biggest in the Middle East, in this region, basically.
Excuse me.
And they are still capable of carrying out cyber attacks. And of course, I think the number one potential threat against Israel for 2025 is their nuclear capabilities. Okay, the military nuclear capabilities that are still developing, and the West and Israel will need to address this threat in this year.
I'm a little murky on my timeline. I believe the JCPOA expires sometime now. Let's say in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
The JCPOA there's a nuclear proliferation treaty or anti-nuclear proliferation treaty, which there's an international committee. It's a very long story that's 15 years long, where the international community had a deal with the Iranians, preventing them from becoming a nuclear threshold country with military capabilities. And during the previous Trump administration, the U.S. government withdrew unilaterally from that agreement, and the Iranians said, "No problem, guys. We're continuing to push on for nuclear capabilities." And in that process, Israel didn't strike any of their nuclear facilities except for one. Do you know the story about this?
No.
So what was it? Last month, we struck deep into Iran.
Yes.
And everyone knows about what we officially did. We officially knocked out a bunch of surface air batteries.
Yeah, the S-300 anti-aircraft defense systems.
So the list was 3 S-300, 3 S-300 batteries, and a bunch of other strategic facilities related to the IRGC, and one more secret facility. And this is where it's a little complicated. I'll try to explain. When you have a nuclear supervisors, they're supposed to know about all your facilities. So there's a list of the official nuclear facilities within Iran. And those facilities, still to this day, are frequented by international supervisors. But they also have unofficial nuclear facilities.
Definitely. Well, they develop whatever they want because they don't let the supervisor, the nuclear watchdog agents enter these
Well, they officially don't exist. So officially they don't exist.
Some of them, they just say you're not allowed in them.
They officially don't exist. And Israel...
This is a flower producing company. We're making flower here. We don't make it.
So they don't exist. And Israel didn't bomb them. It's perfect legit. So we know this now because it's been leaked to international sources, such as ourselves, I guess we're also international sources, that the Israeli Air Force did bomb one of their facilities. Well, there are many more.
Yeah.
And it is a threat. Israel or Israeli experts, and we've interviewed quite a few of them, they say Iran is what we call a nuclear threshold country. And what that means is,
They're about
explain
to
to
reach a nuclear bomb.
I just want to say that we just kidnapped some of the best scientists from Syria in a
Commander raid, yeah, a few months ago. But that we don't know if they're nuclear scientists or chemical scientists or whatever scientists they are. So, okay, so Iran, you put them at 2.5 out of 10.
look, they're the biggest threat from Israel's perspective.
Yeah, the biggest I think they're the only existential threat from Israel's perspective.
As of now, yes.
As of now,
Yeah.
yes.
I agree with that. They've been very, very weakened, but that doesn't mean they don't have power.
Definitely.
Which is, I guess, it's a little complicated to understand. They've lost many of their muscles. Like their ability to exact damage on Israel and take a price from us is lower, but they still have power.
Definitely. They are a huge country with big influence, big money, and also ideological influence around the world.
Look, remember the beginning of the war. These are so the Iranians have these levers of power. They have mechanisms where they're able to push a button, so to speak, and disrupt something.
Hezbollah is attacking.
Exactly.
Hezbollah is trying to kidnap a soldier or a civilian.
Yeah, so a lot of those buttons are no longer on the table. Hezbollah is on the table, Hamas isn't, Syria militias are off the table.
Assad is off the table.
Assad, yeah, but the Houthis are still on the, they're still available.
Houthis are still, yeah.
They have still the ability to launch missiles. They still have the ability to disrupt global trade. And remember the beginning of, what was it, the first 2.5 months of the war, something like that? The Houthis were disrupting trade through the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, which is the entry into the Red Sea. And the Iranians, through Houthis and through whatever, their IRGC forces, they never officially took responsibility for it, were still attacking vessels within the Arabian Sea. So the Arabian Sea is the other side of the Arabian Peninsula, so Saudi and Yemen. And that was IRGC forces. Just 2 days ago, I'm trying to think what the timeline was. 2 or 3 days ago, one of the two.
One of the days.
One of those days, the Houthis and the Iranian government, through the IRGC, they sent a drone and missile attack to an American aircraft carrier. You know this? People talk about this as if we're in a peaceful state. They attacked the American.
They don't care.
Is it the Navy or Marines? I'm not sure which one of them it is. But anyway, one of them.
An American vessel.
An American vessel.
Military vessel.
A strategic American asset in the Arabian Sea was attacked by...
More than that, F-18 of the American army being fell down by the American army themselves, the double shot, because of the missiles of the Houthis drove them crazy and they tried to take them down.
And they hit their own airplanes, yes.
Aircraft.
An American aircraft was shot down by an American anti-drone missile, but there were no casualties.
No,
the pilots were able to eject in time.
I want to introduce. We have a problem, and the problem is that the way the world looks at the way Israel defends itself, it seems like we're impenetrable.
Yeah,
and it's wrong. That's not the case. We look at the Iranian past attacks and we say look, we knocked out. There were 500 assets that were launched back in April, whenever that was. And then afterwards there were another, several hundred, and none of them made it into Israel. And so you would imagine, and I think we fall into that sort of a psychological fallacy, where we think, there's no way that they can stop us. But that's not true. They have learned our systems. And some of the recent Houthi attacks were done, we were talking about this just the other day, they were done under the protection or the disturbance, I guess, of a swarm of drones, or a bunch of let's call it countermeasures that they're launching at the same time as they're launching the missile. And look, air defense systems are pieces of technology manned by humans. There's a capacity and a bandwidth, and at a certain point, you or make a mistake or you get overwhelmed. And they've been very clever at doing that.
Yeah, they did. That's why a few drones were able to intercept Tel Aviv, an Israeli city, and cause damage.
Yeah.
And I think that the big
missiles that Israel got this year, how many missiles we've been shot at?
Do you know?
Do you have it?
Yeah. So look at
what is it?
From Iran, we have 200 missiles, ballistic missiles, being shot at us.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, Tomer, let's give people perspective on the size of a ballistic missile.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's bigger than the studio.
Not this big. It's the size of a bus.
Yeah.
It's the size of a bus flying through the sky at Mach point something. carrying sometimes 300 to 500 or more kilos of explosives. So if this hits a target...
Kilos, what's like more than 1,500 pounds or something? I don't know, pounds so much.
1 billion pounds.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Very big. Basically, it's a bus. They shoot a bus at us.
We're talking thousands of pounds of ordnance. Many of them have multiple heads. Sometimes the warhead of a missile can have several that split when they're over the target. Anyway, if this would have hit an Israeli city block, it could have knocked down several buildings. This is the level of destruction that could have caused.
200 of those were fired at Israel.
By
Okay, so
Iran.
Hezbollah shot more than 3,000 missiles, like heavy missiles at us in the last year. It's here cut it
Wait, now we're going to Hezbollah?
Yeah, I just running over them. Houthis shot at us. Where is that? 21 ballistics until now.
21 ballistic missiles till now. Okay.
That's it?
Hamas, how many rockets Hamas launched at us?
I didn't put Hamas. Too many.
Too many, right?
They're still shooting.
Hamas is in the tens of thousands.
Yeah.
It was many thousands on the day of October 7th and thousands
And
more.
thousands throughout the 10 years, the past 15
No,
years.
but even in the months since October 7th, it was hundreds every night, some of the nights.
Okay, so we finished with Iran. Let's move to number 2.
Since we're on memory lane here, do you remember? So from October 7th through the end of May, was in northern Judea. Northern Judea is about 900,000 meters, which is, I don't know how many feet.
High.
3,500, 4,000 feet high.
Higher than Jerusalem.
Higher than Jerusalem, yeah. So a lot of our outposts were looking west. People forget what the war looked like. Hamas was firing, and this is what they were spending the last years manufacturing. They were firing sometimes hundreds of rockets a night against Israel.
Yeah.
And me and my soldiers, I think many nights, because it was oftentimes the same time exactly every day, 8 p.m. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Rockets night.
Yeah.
Sitting and eating popcorn.
Yeah, we'd go and go watch the show. And because we're high up, but you could see all the way into the Gaza Strip from where we are because of the height difference. And you'd see this volley of rockets come up from the ground. And
then you see the Iron Dome anti-rocket defense system intercept them. It's like a firework show.
And you're both excited, scared, and happy at the same time.
It's weird.
All of these emotions coming at the same time because we forget what a dramatic year this has been for the state of Israel.
Do you remember before October 7th the balloon attack, the incendiary balloon attacks from the Gaza Strip? So they basically sent a balloon with helium gas inside of it that was attached to like a firecracker or a Molotov cocktail into Israel, and then it would fall in the agricultural fields and forests and cause damage.
They got more complicated.
And then they started with drones.
No, but even before this, we say balloon, people think, party balloon. No, we're talking like a weather forecasting balloon, meteorological balloon. Some of these things the circumference that's bigger than this table, and it can carry a payload that's in the kilos, not in the grams.
Yeah.
So multiple pounds of explosives.
But many balloons every day.
Yeah, and they started iterating. So instead of having like a simple one where if it touches down on the ground it brings the fire, they'd have timing mechanisms on them where it would drop from the sky and set fire to fields and facilities. Again, remember, everything around Gaza is agricultural land on the Israeli side. And so they were trying to cause
everything on the border with Lebanon.
Same.
Basically, on our borders, we have agriculture.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're done with Iran. Let's move to Hezbollah.
Are we done with Iran? What is Iran going to do next year? Let's talk about that.
Well, I think Iran's going to make a run for the nuclear bomb next year. And unless Israel and the United States and the West will stop them militarily, meaning destroying the nuclear facilities, we're going to have a nuclear Iran.
So maybe you know something I don't know, but this is what I've understood so far. Israel and the U.S., without fully invading Iran, don't have the ability to stop the Iranian nuclear program. It doesn't. Tomer, do you know otherwise? This is information that's been released, even with Moab, where it's Moab is acronym for Mother of All Bombs.
But we are always infiltrating Iran. We already infiltrated Iran in the past with spies,
Still, they've diversified their assets when it comes to the nuclear program. They have, at this point, probably dozens of facilities. Many of them are hidden deep underground. The American government says, the Israeli government says, look, we don't have the ability from the air to destroy everything. That causes a lot of damage. So they're right now at what is called the threshold. So they're one step away from breaking to a nuclear warhead. And I want to explain that because it's two different technologies.
The Khamenei, I think, said that, or one of the leaders of Iran said that this year gonna be the nuclear year.
Yeah. And so let's just explain this. There's several different technologies and capabilities that go into a nuclear bomb. One of them is the process itself of nuclear, is it fission or fission? Whatever. It's
fusion?
No, it's not fusion, it's fission. Anyway, whatever it's called in English, is taking the uranium ore and making it into a warhead. That's one of them. And that itself is not just enriching uranium, which they've been doing. It's enriching uranium to military grade. Then it's creating the explosive warhead around it that's able to start the chain reaction that's needed to blow it up.
To make an atom bomb.
Yeah. Then you need to do that multiple times, not once. Because you can't have one nuclear bomb, you need to have many nuclear bombs to actually create a deterrence. Then you have to have a delivery mechanism. And the delivery mechanism...
ballistic rockets that are capable of carrying a nuclear payload.
Exactly. All our listeners are going to know how to build a nuclear weapon now.
Yeah, very. It's more complicated than what we say here, But, yeah.
So anyway, so they have many of those pieces. They have the ICBMs. They're not very good ICBMs, but if they had 10 nuclear warheads, they'd be able to deliver some of them into destination. Yeah. Then it's a question of our defense systems being able to shoot them down. They don't yet have the mechanism of actually blowing up the warhead itself. They haven't built it, but that is something that can be done. It's also something that can be bought off the shelf. And there are countries that have been trying to sell it to them as an off-the-shelf product. The North Koreans have tried several times.
Okay.
Yeah. And Israel's bombed, blown up, or used, let's call it espionage, to kill and blow up the people and the devices that was sent over, that was trying to be sent over to Iran. It's not like they've not been trying. They've been trying non-stop this last year.
No, definitely.
And we've done this also with the Iraqis before them and with Syrians. Before something ever makes it to their country, we've usually blown it up, stolen it, or destroyed it in whatever country's selling them the bomb.
Or on the way.
Yeah.
Or on the way.
Be it the North Koreans for the Iranians, or the French for the Iraqis. Remember this? The Osirak, people forget this. The Osirak nuclear plant in Iraq, they had a nuclear, what is the word in English for this? Reactor core that was built in France. And Israel sent spies into France, this is back in the late 70s? Late 70s, I think. Just so people talk about the good guys and bad guys, let's not forget what they were doing, not that long ago. They were selling nuclear reactors to the Iraqi government under Saddam Hussein, who no one in their right mind would say was a reasonable individual. Anyway, so the Iranians...
Well, they also sold us nuclear reactors, according to foreign press.
Maybe, allegedly.
According to foreign press.
Let's pause for a second before we continue. We were talking about the Iranians. To remind everyone at home, hold on, where's my camera? Pause your video, go to the button underneath the video that says subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, there's a little over half of our views haven't subscribed to this channel. Pause, subscribe, take the little bell so you don't miss the next video. We have videos that come out on a daily basis, both on YouTube and on other social media platforms and on our website. So make sure you go there, you subscribe, and then what do we say? Like and share.
Yeah, like and share. It helps us to reach more people with what is happening in Israel. Helps us, grows our operations in Israel. So please, if you like what we do, subscribe.
So, okay, let's carry on. We talked about the Iranians. We finalized the thought with the fact that they're pushing for a nuclear bomb. They will remain a threat, and an existential threat, possibly the only one in the region, for Israel in the year to come, for sure.
Definitely.
And it's something we will continue to fight with directly and indirectly through their proxies.
Definitely.
So let's put them to the side now.
Okay, let's move to the next enemy of Israel, Hezbollah. Okay, where they are located, first of all. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, used to be the largest terrorist organization, the richest terrorist organization, and the most dangerous terrorist organization in the world, up until a few months ago, when Israel launched a multiple attack against their leadership, basically terminating Hassan Nasrallah, their biggest leader.
The spiritual and physical leader,
yeah, and then all the leaders underneath him, all the, even I would say, lower level leadership, or many of their infrastructure, and push them northern into North Lebanon, while the IDF is still present in South Lebanon. And at the moment, we have I don't know, 60-day ceasefire. What's left of it is 30 days. So far, Hezbollah is still engaged in conflicts with Israel on certain locations. They're trying to retrieve their weapons. They're trying to maintain presence and basically test our forces that are present in South Lebanon.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the situation now. Israel was fearing Hezbollah before this war, and I was trained on the fact that when a war will be released between Israel and Hezbollah, they will launch 3,000 rockets every day toward Israeli cities, towards strategic installations within Israel.
And they didn't.
And disturbed the country. And they didn't at that magnitude. They had a few hundreds a day, but not thousands. Thanks, Gitai.
Thank you, Gitai.
What about me? Not nice. Just kidding. No, I went to the bathroom. I'm all watered up. Where is the order button here? I didn't know it was like it was taking orders. Okay. So yeah.
So Hezbollah.
So Hezbollah, yes.
And I think the point you raise is a very important point to be reminded of, is that for decades we thought that Hezbollah were the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
We feared their fighting force. We feared their missile capability. They had upwards of 100,000 rockets aimed at Israel, out of which about half are supposed to be accurate and long range, which means that they had the ability to send rockets and missiles the size that can knock down a building to Haifa, to Ashdod, to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem in certain cases, and to everything in the range, within that range. So to cause existential damage to the state of Israel, maybe not destroy the state of Israel, but kill tens of thousands of people, civilians in Israel.
Yes.
That was a threat.
Plus, they planned on invading and conquering the northern part of Israel, the Galilee, and they had commando forces stationed in South Lebanon to do exactly that.
Yeah.
That was like the second phase of their operation.
Called, wait a minute, I'm mixing up Hamas and Hezbollah.
Radwan forces.
No, yeah, Nukhban Radwan. Yeah, I was mixing them up in my head. So the Radwan force was a elite force of about 8,000 fighters, out of roughly 80 or 90,000 that the Hezbollah apparently had at the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
We were expecting, and it's crazy to say this now in retrospect, we were expecting to lose multiple communities in northern Israel the day Hezbollah attacked. That was our expectation.
I know, I remember that.
It's
crazy to think about it now.
Yeah.
Because it was impossible to protect the north with the amount of military that we had before the war started.
So the terrain of northern Israel is very, very dramatic. The topography is very steep. There's a lot of mountains and deep valleys, and very, very hard to deliver supply lines. And on the other side, you had Hezbollah, who were trained. They fought Israel while we were still inside southern Lebanon. They fought against Israel for almost 20 years. They were highly trained. They were highly experienced. Then they were battle-hardened warriors from the
Syrian Civil War.
From the Syrian Civil War, where they massacred Syrian civilians.
And they basically saved the Assad regime.
Yes.
That's another reason why Syria fell now, because they were hit down so hard that they couldn't help Assad, and the rebels took advantage of that situation and took control of Syria. Okay, so let's do physical, mental, and economic ramifications of Hezbollah against Israel in the past year. Okay, so they've been launching rocket drones that caused severe damage to the northern community of Israel and hurt people, physically and also mentally.
In the beginning of the war, Israel voluntarily, Hezbollah didn't say this and didn't force us, Israel voluntarily initially evacuated over 100,000 people.
From the northern community.
From the northern communities. Entire cities were evacuated in northern Israel, the biggest of which, or the northernmost of which, is Kiryat Shmona.
Yeah.
We visited there multiple times.
It's like a ghost town.
It was, for the most part.
You can film zombie movies there now.
I mean, the city was empty, still empty. You had tumbleweeds rolling across the street, abandoned cars, abandoned houses.
The lights in the streets are like blinking orange, meaning they're like, they're not operating.
Yeah.
It's very sad. And just imagine the amount of money that you need to invest in order to house, feed, teach the kids, the people that were evacuated from these houses.
Do you know what the number is now? What number of people is still evacuated?
No, I don't know. You know? Are we like above 50?
I think, Ken, I remember it dropped. We were for most of the war, we were somewhere between 60 and 70,000 people that were evacuated from the northern part of the country.
Just from the north.
Just from I know some of the communities have started going back. I haven't checked the last couple of days. We'll hear in a second. So Hezbollah did that. Hezbollah were able to, what's the word I'm looking for?
143,000 תושבים. 140.
No, that was in the beginning of the war.
68,000.
I don't think that's accurate anymore. That's I think 68,000 is the number was the number for months. But we've been up north. We've seen some of the communities go back home.
Yeah.
Since the ceasefire agreement about a month ago. I think the number's smaller today. Maybe there isn't an official one yet. Anyway, but Hezbollah, they did wreak a substantial amount of havoc and damage to northern communities. I remember once sitting up north having lunch, overlooking the Israel Valley, or the Jezreel Valley, as English speakers say.
The Jezreel Valley.
And you just saw like a very substantial amount of rockets just flying over the valley as we're sitting there. You see the interceptor. I'm sitting there eating lunch, looking out of the window, like in shock. What is going on? You don't even have time to respond because it's happening so fast. The sirens happen as the rockets are flying through the air. And we just sit there looking. You see the intercepts, and we go back to eating our lunch.
It's weird. It's a weird situation for sure.
The number is 17,600 for now.
17,000? Yeah, so it's dropped.
17,600. So many of these Israelis decided to move to other communities. Because the north is not packed with people now.
1,000 people starting to go back home now.
62,000. Okay.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot.
Place it stands.
Yeah, so
I saw Instagram and TikTok videos of people coming to their houses and everything is dust. Their houses stand still for a year.
Look, this is going to be on the video we play later this weekend actually, of our visit to Manara. Manara, one of the communities most impacted. I want people to grasp this. These are civilian homes where Hezbollah, for months, and it's a more elaborate story that we talk about in this piece, where they were destroying the community intentionally. And they were doing it so there was nothing to come back to.
Yeah.
And this is an innocent village. I'm doing air quotes if you're listening to this. An innocent village on the Lebanese side of the border, a Sunni village of 40,000 people that from various locations on this village, they're firing anti-tank missiles again and again and again to blow up and burn every house in the Jewish community of Manara. And when they do so, the people of the community, because it's so dangerous, they can't even come and put out the fires. So the fires burn so hot that they melt the glass, they melt the metal, they melt the cars that are parked outside. We've seen it firsthand.
We saw it.
And they did this, and then the people haven't even been able to visit their homes. We were there
up until a few weeks ago, basically.
We were there when I think one of the first sort of like convoys of civilians came back to see their
to see their houses after more than a year.
Yeah.
And the annoying part about all of this is that from Manara, the Israeli kibbutz, you see Hezbollah outposts in Lebanon, and in between them you have a United Nations headquarters, like a huge base.
And what we were told, we were on the site is, these guys weren't here for the entirety of the war.
But they came now.
They came now that there's a ceasefire, an Israeli army on the other side of them protecting them. So again, we've learned so many painful lessons in this war, and I think the biggest one is im enanili mili.
Yeah. If I'm not defending myself, nobody will, basically.
Yeah, exactly. This is a famous statement from the 1880s or late 1880s in Israeli communities, where people understood no international community is going to give us a country, no international community is going to protect us. We forgot that lesson, and we've been reminded of that lesson this last year.
Definitely.
Where if we don't have boots on the ground, a very good daily show, newscast
I know the
on our
host.
YouTube channel.
I know the host.
I know the host. He's a trustworthy character. It's on our YouTube channel every day. But if we don't have boots on the ground in Syria, in Lebanon, in the Gaza Strip, on the Gaza and Egypt border, on the Egyptian border, yes, on the Egyptian and Jordanian border too, then we will be attacked, we will be compromised. And that's the lesson we've learned in the last year. The UN won't protect us, no one else will. It's only if we protect ourselves. Yes, we have allies, but we need to protect ourselves first and foremost.
For sure. Okay, so let's summarize the amount of attacks and the frequency of the attacks from Hezbollah against Israel. So only in October, Hezbollah fired 1,158 attacks against Israel, and this includes rockets, UAVs, suicide drones, and this organization increased its firepower and distance and did 296 attacks against Israel at a distance that is higher than 5 kilometers from the border.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is like compared to the previous months. And the primary weapon that Hezbollah used was rocket fire.
Yeah.
And he used that to attack the IDF positions and civilian infrastructure.
Yeah, but they also used countless drones.
Yeah.
And direct fire from anti-tank missiles. The Israeli army had to fight very hard against Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And there was a very long, let's call it low intensity, low burn conflict that started on October 8th in the north.
Yeah.
And only really changed pace when Israel invaded Lebanon.
I remember the beginning was like a missile from Hezbollah towards us, then we struck them with a drone or artillery shot, and then it intensified to two shots, then it increased into, okay, they shot at a civilian building, then we shot at a Hezbollah outpost near a village or in a village. So, and then it became like, you punch me, I punch you, but a little bit higher, and then it became a completely full-on war. Okay, so what do they have left for 2025? What are they keeping?
Let's be honest here, Hezbollah are much weaker than they were before.
Yeah. That's the best news of this.
Very, very good news. Hezbollah, as an existential threat to the state of Israel, as they were before October 7th, no longer exist. They've lost.
Hallelujah! I think it's very good for us.
Yeah, they've lost their spiritual leader. They've lost their backing. They've lost the ground routes from Iran into Lebanon.
Also the aerial routes.
Yeah. That allowed the Iranians to supply them on a regular basis.
Their banking, the economy was hurt severely. And also their political power within Lebanon. This is the last kind of thing that we're trying to shake up.
And they lost a lot of their fighting power. Yeah. You look at their org chart from before the war, it is all X's.
I know, I remember.
Not a single image left.
Stout Shuker, he was so promising.
It took you so long to learn the name. we joke about this, and I realize how many new names we've had to learn in this last war.
Wow.
Again and again and again.
Masoud Pazachstian. We need to know.
He's still there.
Oh, no, what was before him? Ismail Raisi.
We're about to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
But it's amusing. It's like it's been such a long war, and so many people have been killed on our enemy side that we're constantly learning new names of enemies. It's not, well, I'd rather we don't have any enemies, but it is
for sure,
amusing to a certain point.
Okay, so what do they have now? They still have rockets.
They still have rockets, but much less.
Plus, it's hard for them to transport them.
They have a political power in Lebanon.
Less. And I want to remind people, and we've interviewed several people that are Lebanese in the last couple months. Did they interview with Mariam? Okay. They didn't air yet. But we have a very, very interesting interview coming up. Two actually. And people who lived in Lebanon, two women who lived in Lebanon, coming up soon on our YouTube channel. Very interesting testimony. And you remember the Seil before the war broke out, we would see testament to the fact that the Lebanese people were coming against the Hezbollah, and they'd stop the convoys within.
I remember. Like Druze villages or Christian villages that Hezbollah would try to transfer weapons through them, and they would just take over the truck and push away the terrorists.
Yeah, because they had a fuel shortage back then, and anyway, they were rising against. Hezbollah has lost a lot of political power in Lebanon. Remember that? What was it? When did the bomb go off in the port of Beirut? What year was that?
Wow, I remember that. That was like a huge explosion.
2020?
I think 2020.
2020? Anyway, several years ago, whatever year it was, I want to say it was like 2020 or 2021, and an enormous stockpile of fertilizer. I'm saying this very facetiously. It was explosives, hundreds of tons of explosives that Hezbollah was storing. Think about this for a minute. In the main port, in the most densely populated city in the country, they had possibly thousands of tons of explosives stockpiled, and they exploded. They blew up several city blocks in the city.
A container full of balloons for a birthday.
Anyway, and the images of
agricultural material.
It is considered to be the biggest explosion since Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's how big it was. You see the images of it. It is something out of a Hollywood film where someone who's kilometers away, you see the blast wave come their direction and just blow everything in its direction. So that's how strong Hezbollah was in Lebanon. Now the Lebanese people are again fighting them. They're again speaking up against them.
4 August 2020.
Oh, so it was 2020.
They had 200 casualties, like dead people.
Okay.
Anyway, so Hezbollah is dramatically weakened, and that is a good thing. It's a good thing for us, and it's a very, very good thing for the people of Lebanon. Lebanon has been a country that was ripped to pieces by Hezbollah. Before Hezbollah, there were other external Islamic elements that were pushing the civil war in the country. That country went, and we talk about this extensively in other pieces that we've created. It took a country that was considered to be the French Riviera of the Middle East, Lebanon, modern, multicultural, multi-ethnicity, multi-religious country, beautiful country. They tore it apart in a very long civil war. People think it's about Hezbollah and Israel. No, it's not. They were fighting internally for decades. They tore apart that country. They assassinated their political leaders in the country. So Hezbollah being weakened is good news first and foremost for the people of Lebanon.
For sure.
And my prayer for them, because we'll talk about this at the end, is that they have a better government, that international aid comes in to push out the forces of Hezbollah and allow them some kind of semblance of normalcy in the country.
Yeah, I think there is hope for a democracy within Lebanon, because Lebanon is combined from a bunch of religions, a bunch of ethnic groups.
Yeah.
You have the Druze, you have the Sunnis, you have the Shiites, you have the Christians. And all of them used to have representation in the government.
Yeah.
So there is hope because the political system is built to coexist. So we just need to push out these radicals from Lebanon and the Iranian influence.
Yeah.
And then there is a hope for peace with Israel. And I'm optimistic about it, but only with boots on the ground on the border to defend our people.
Yes.
For sure.
Let's move on. So the following list is, and we started with Iran, moved to Hezbollah. Everyone down the line from the pipeline from this is dramatically weakened compared to what it was previously.
Except the Houthis.
No, the Houthis are weakened too. They're still a fighting force, but they're dramatically weakened compared to what they had previously. Next is Hamas. Hamas was on the eve of October 7th, a fighting force with close to 100,000 fighters within it. 100,000, tens of thousands of which were highly trained forces, and the rest were loosely trained militias and terrorists.
Yeah.
Let's call it more grassroots terrorism. They had a strong stakehold in Judea and Samaria, inside Israel. They were trying to get also to the Arabs of the state of Israel, Israeli Arabs, and they were a substantial fighting force. The IDF invades...
Wait, before that, they also had the largest terror state in the world. They basically converted the Gaza Strip into a terrorist military
playground
base. But every house in Gaza either has an underground tunnel or a shooting position or a rooftop position for a sniper.
Yes.
They prepared the entire Gaza Strip for this war.
Yeah.
For 20 years.
Yeah, and the IDF invaded. When did we invade? End of November.
Yeah, 2 months after.
Yeah, we
October
invaded
7th.
at the end of November. We invaded the Gaza Strip. The Hamas as a fighting force that existed before October 7th no longer existed.
Yeah, it was built up almost like a military, with brigades,
it was a military
company commanders, with platoon commanders, and now it shrunk into a guerrilla organization with sporadic attacks of individuals that are fighting from humanitarian zones, from schools, from hospitals, and from within the Palestinian people, using civilians as human shields. Well, they did that also in the beginning, but now that's the only thing that's keeping them alive, is hiding behind the children, the women, and the civilians.
And Israel has killed, according to Israeli estimates, close to 20,000 Hamas combatants. I think the number is like 17 or 19,000, according to our tally. According to the Hamas tally, the numbers are made up on a daily basis and should be ignored as they are compulsive.
Sadly, they're not by the international community.
Okay, they should be ignored because they're compulsive liars who lie consistently.
And have an agenda. And the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza are governed by Hamas.
Yeah.
Meaning Hamas is the Palestinian Health Ministry.
Let me just say this, because this is the political issue that will tie into, let's call it Hasbara, as we call it, diplomatic efforts. The majority of the people killed in the Gaza Strip by the IDF are young men. This is an important note. In many conflicts around the world, including those fought by the good guys, quote unquote, the majority of the casualties are civilians. And civilians are classified as children and women. In Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip, in the last 14 months, the vast majority of the people killed are young men of fighting age. So men between the ages of 16 or 17 and mid-30s. Most of the people killed are in that age group. The IDF has done an amazing job we could do hour-long conversations about
Only
this.
on that, on how to not harm the civilians and the innocent, and we use precision weapons to do that. We call on the population to evacuate before a strike is made. We screen the faces of the people to make sure who's a terrorist and who's not, and many other ways and techniques that were developed in this war.
Yeah, and we've done an amazing job. The lessons learned in this last war are going to be learned for the next 30 years in military schools around the world, on how to fight in densely populated urban areas. The initial estimates, that we had a bunch of American Afghanistan veterans, generals come in, they were estimating that the IDF would lose tens of thousands of soldiers, and that we would kill hundreds of thousands within the Gaza Strip by just indiscriminate fire. The exact opposite happened. The IDF has lost less than 1,000 soldiers so far, fighting a war in 3 different countries at the same time: Syria, Lebanon, and the Gaza Strip.
It's crazy.
Again, let's not forget Judea and Samaria, where I spent almost 8 months straight at the beginning of the war. Like we've been fighting a war on multiple fronts. It changes. It's 7 fronts, 8 fronts, depending on what week we're talking about. Done an amazing job of weakening Hamas. Hamas are no longer a fighting force as they were in the past. And yet the IDF isn't done, because there's still a very powerful militia within the Gaza Strip that is weakening the population and fighting against the IDF.
Well, the issues there are that Hamas is not just a terrorist organization. Hamas is also the governing civil power in the Gaza Strip. So unless you find somebody else to govern the 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, Hamas is still going to be in control. And plus the ideological aspect of all of this, 20 years of brainwashing the children in Hamas education, in Hamas schools, training them and brainwashing them to hate Israel, to hate the IDF, to hate the Jewish people, is very hard to shift from that hatred to something else.
It's going to take time.
It's going to take a decade minimum, with some good leadership and education.
Yes.
And on top of that, they still have 100 Israeli hostages in the Gaza Strip. And this is basically kind of their ace up their sleeve that they're using in order to psychologically affect the country of Israel, enormously in the past year. And they're unwilling to budge from their demands that the IDF will withdraw from the Gaza Strip for any kind of, hostage exchange deal with them.
Yeah, I mean,
if you will check Wikipedia, Hamas is winning this war. They're changing Wikipedia rapidly, pro-Palestinians, that in any fight over this war on Wikipedia, it's like million of fights from 7th of October on Wikipedia, Hamas won all of them and Israel lost. So now AIs that going on the internet to search for information always will show that this war, Hamas won.
Well, I'll tell you what they're winning. They're winning the information war.
Yeah.
That's what they've been winning. Hamas and anti-Israelis have been winning, and anti-Zionist and anti-Semitics have been winning the media war throughout this war. And the reason is not because they are more just. The reason is because they shout louder. And there's a large percentage of people around the world that hate Israel with a passion that can only be attributed to spirituality. And this was supposed to be at the end of the list, but I'm happy you raised this topic. Hamas used propaganda very successfully, as do the Iranians. They are a villainous and evil organization that stops at nothing, including lying, deceit, and faking reality to shift the public's perception. And they've been able to push a button that exists in the psyche of people around the world. And again, let's be clear, this is not just Muslims who live in Western countries. There are people on campuses in the US that should be enlightened, that should be educated,
liberals
who live in an alternative reality.
Ivy League colleges, that's what we're talking about. Like the best of the best that the West can offer are also influenced by these pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism
they're indoctrinated.
slogans.
They are no more informed than let's call it. They're as idiotic as anyone else is around the world. They've been ill-informed and uneducated, and they've allowed a single YouTube video or a lecture that they received in college to shape their worldview without actually going to check the sources.
Without checking the history, without checking the facts, and without checking who they're supporting and who they are chanting for.
And again, we've talked about this so many times, but to think about this, here's a reality. Someone on a US campus who couldn't point out Israel on a map, couldn't point out Hamas on a map,
couldn't
point out
which
Hezbollah or
which
Iran.
river, which sea.
And they are willing to go on a march on their campuses or outside the campus, call for the extermination of the Jewish people in the land of Israel with knowing nothing about what happens here. And to look at that and to say that this is a logical conclusion, it's a falsehood.
It's diabolical.
You have to look at it from a spiritual lens.
You have to.
And say that the love, Avat Israel, and it's the love of Israel is supernatural. The hatred of Israel is supernatural. And if you ignore it, try to explain how a 19-year-old who knows nothing about this country is sure that the source of all evil in the world stems from the state of Israel. This conflict, even during this war, this conflict is inconsequential in global violence scales.
Worldwide, definitely.
Where were you when Russia invaded Ukraine? Where were you in the countless civil wars that took place in Africa in the last decade? Where were you? Where were you when the Chinese were massacring whatever minority of the month they were massacring?
North Korea. I mean, you have evil entities in the world that nobody is speaking about. But then Israel is defending itself.
Where were these people when the North Korean government starved to death between 8 to 14 million people of their own citizens back in the 90s? Where were these people? Nowhere to be seen or heard of.
No. So, Mati, I think this is a good place to have our conclusion for the worst enemies of Israel.
Well, let's take 2 minutes for speculation.
Okay.
So here's what I've learned in the last 15 months, is that you could have all the information of the world in the world, and we'll still have no idea what happens tomorrow.
That's for sure.
That's what we've learned.
That's for sure. Definitely.
That's what we've learned. And two, that understanding the reality we live in requires attention, complexity, and learning. And I want to encourage people, not because we're the best at that. We try, but there are a lot of good outlets of content out there.
Yeah, for sure.
You really need to diversify your content consumption to understand what's happening in this part of the world and track it on a daily basis. Think that the Houthis were not an enemy we considered a year ago. Hezbollah was the biggest enemy. They're no longer an existential threat for us.
Things change fast. Hamas was not a threat to Israel, and they caused the most amount of damage to the state of Israel since the War of Independence. So it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so what we know is we don't know. Let's be honest here. And even though me and you on a daily basis and our team, we're all hardworking people, et cetera, and still we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
We can only know that things here move quickly and that the enemies shift on a regular basis. You could find that Turkey they go AWOL in the next 12 months, and that Erdogan goes off the extreme edge of reality.
More extreme than what he is now.
More extreme than the alternative reality he already projects to the world, and decides that he's coming to fight Israel. He's done this in the past.
Yeah.
Erdogan, people forget this. When was the flotilla? 2010, 11?
Something like that.
In the 2000s, yeah.
Sometime in the last 20 years.
Marmara flotilla, ship from Turkey, filled with weapons, was sent into the Gaza Strip to break the blockade of Israel and then
but just
help Hamas.
To frame the picture for people, we say we know all the players. Okay, look, the Turkish government, let's say 10, 15 years ago, more than once.
2010, May.
Oh, that was a pure guess, by the way. So 2010, the Turkish government loads up ships, not one ship, ships with violently armed terrorists that are their own terrorists, sends them to the Gaza Strip as a freedom flotilla, while what they're carrying is weaponry to arm Hamas and kill Israelis. And they say, these are peacekeeping people. We expect the Israelis to not bother them. Those people tried to kill him. They do kill, I think, several of the elite Shayatit soldiers that board the ships.
I don't think they killed. They wounded them.
One of them was severely
wounded.
He was stabbed, I think, 100 times or something like that.
Yeah, but these guys are like refrigerators. So they take a lot to take them.
Anyway, so again, so the Turkish government could go AWOL. We could find a militia that we never knew about, never heard of, in Iraq that is suddenly launching missiles against Israel and funded by the Iranians. There might be someone in Africa that suddenly decides. This happened, by the way, in the past. That the North Sudanese, we forget about this.
I'm afraid from Houston.
Turkey has an army. The Egyptians have an enormous army. What if they become destabilized by whoever knows what, like financial downfall that they suffer? Look, just
very easy. Everything can change very, very rapidly here in the Middle East.
A year and a half ago, people in Egypt were, I'm not exaggerating, they were 30 days away from mass starvation. Not because anything was happening in Egypt, because of Ukraine. You know about this?
Yeah, I know, because most of the grain that Egypt consumed was sent from Ukraine, and now because of the war with Russia, they had to find alternative routes.
Because the Russians were burning the wheat fields of the Ukraine, and they were bombing the ships that were carrying the wheat to the Middle East. Wheat prices went up in Egypt, and a country of almost 100 million people was facing mass starvation. This is how tricky things here can be. You have more people on the table. What did you just yell at there, Tomel? Jordan.
What, Saudi?
Look,
Jordan is also.
Jordan is a country that is held. I mean, literally, it's an inch away from the government being overthrown any day of the week. Any day of the week. They have a population that is anti-government.
I think 60% of Jordan.
We don't know what the real numbers are.
Yeah, we don't have numbers for sure, but a massive amount of populations are refugees. Some Palestinian refugees.
Yeah, and the government in Jordan is not Palestinian. It is Hashemite, which is Bedouin in its source. They are not supportive of the government. The government fears much of their population. They've had millions of refugees come in from destabilized Iraq, destabilized Syria in recent years. We've filmed
a place for trafficking weapons. That Iran is sending weapons and drugs. Used to be from Syria, from Iraq, from other places, all the way into Judea and Samaria in Israel, to help the Palestinian terrorists here against us.
So we really don't know.
This is the situation.
And this is why it's interesting. This is why you have to track the news here on a daily basis to really understand what's happening. Because it's what you have today might not be the case tomorrow, might not be the case the next day.
Okay, so who's last? The least threatening enemy to Israel.
Felipe Felipe?
No.
The flip-flop wearing
who's number 5 in the list? Houthis?
We didn't talk about them yet.
Oh yeah, but we talked about them a little bit in the beginning. Yeah. You want to talk about the Houthis before
you wanted to say Judea and Samaria Palestinians?
No.
Houthis.
No, I wanted to say Hamas. Hamas is completely dismantled. No, but let's list. Let's rank. Let's rank.
Iran is number 1.
No, don't destroy the surprise. Plus, I think I have a different number 1, by the way. Okay, let's do from the back end. Okay. Who's number 6? Who's the weakest?
Right now, today?
Yeah, today.
Hamas.
I agree. Yeah, completely agree. Hamas is completely a guerrilla organization.
Second, above them,
Hezbollah, yes. I don't think Hezbollah will last a few years. I think they'll rebrand and become a small thing.
Yeah. Above them,
Houthis.
Yeah.
Houthis.
Okay. Houthis, aside from a missile here and there, they don't have the ability to do much more. Not to us, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe to trade, but not to us.
Yeah. Above them, I would say above them, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, terrorism in Judea and Samaria.
Is that number 3 for you?
Yeah, and then I have 2 more.
So I'd say I'll agree with that.
I would say number 2 is Iran.
So who's number 1 for you?
The radical anti-Israel spirit and ideology that we see rising up in the West, in Western colleges, in Western civilization. I think that Israel is severely losing that battle, the battle for people's mind. And I think that's what will shape the next decade. And we are winning all these military battles, but we're losing the battle for the young minds and the next generation of this world.
I need to think about this for a second, because what you're saying is, let's say today is the beginning of January 2025.
Yeah.
Existential threats to the state of Israel, not Jewish thought, not Jewish mindset, not Jewish people. Existential threat to the state of Israel. I'd say Iran is on the top of the list.
Existential threat, yes.
Yeah. And possibly above Iran is the unknown. Is the unknown factor, an unknown revolution, an unknown violent coup that takes place in the Middle East. And instead of ending with HTS and El Julani, it ends with something completely unpredictable, and we have another ISIS on our border. I think that's very, very scary. A scary scenario that could happen
easily.
It could happen in Jordan. It could happen in Iraq again. We could see destabilizing forces that are far greater than anything we knew of. And a testament to that is the fact that we live across the fence from Syria. We didn't know they were having a violent coup until it already started. That's how uninformed we are as Israelis.
Yeah, for sure.
Forget about the world, who was completely oblivious to the whole thing. On that, I agree with you that if you look at Israel as an idea and not just as a country, then our existential threat is ideological and not just military. For sure. With that, I would agree. Because Israel is not just a country and an army. Israel is an idea that is a culmination of biblical prophecy, God's provision and protection for his people, and the worldview of Judeo-Christian values. And if you look at it from that perspective, then yes, I would agree with you that our enemies are not the Iranian people. It's the anti-Jewish, anti-Zionist, anti-biblical narrative that is the same in Iran, the same in campuses across the U.S. that call for destruction of the people of Israel, the same in Islamic violent attacks against Jewish communities in Europe, where the West, and think about what happened in the Netherlands the other week, where Western countries look at the violence within their own population and have no idea how to talk about it, how to address it physically. Like they're
yesterday there was a suicide
ramming attack in the United States. Yeah.
On Bourbon Street.
Yeah. Attacking Israeli nationals, right?
Yeah, two
Israeli nationals were hurt.
And 15 other people.
Look, let me say this. I want to end on a hopeful note.
Yeah, for sure.
What we've seen this past year is one, our audience dramatically grow. And it dramatically grew not because we're the best. We try hard, but there are a lot of good outlets out there.
Because people want to know what's happening here.
People wanted to hear the truth about what's happening in Israel. And our response, both in person and online, has been one: love and support. Across the board, we've encountered this. We're talking hundreds of millions of views at this point. I don't know what the number is. It's tens of millions a month. So let's say it's hundreds of millions of people have viewed our content throughout the year and said, we love, we support, we care for the people of Israel.
We pray for the people of Israel. We pray for the situation.
And I want to end on that as I don't think it's all negative. I think as much as evil has risen around the world, people that were on the fence as far as their affiliation can no longer afford to do that anymore, because it's become apparent that evil is evil, and that if you want to stand up for good, you have to stand up for the good.
Even how to read this number.
No, it became
168,200,679 million views.
Okay,
this year.
So almost 170 million views. That's not a bad number.
Definitely. Definitely. I think that I'm really encouraged in this past year that bad is bad, good is good, and many people really stepped up to defend Israel, to pray for Israel, to pray for the good, and to stand against the evil that we're fighting here in this situation.
And I'd say I feel hopeful because I think so we have several ceasefire agreements, and then the Trump administration being sworn in, when is it, on the
20th of January.
So on the 20th, the Trump administration is being sworn in. That can be a incredibly positive event for us. One, he moves fast.
Yeah.
Two, it can force a different conversation within the Arab world in the region, where forces will unite against the Iranian influence in this region. And as much as we look at the negative, we spent over an hour talking about the negative in this region, there's a powerful force in the positive sense of it, that is Saudi-led, that is Emirati, that is several other countries in this region that want peace and stability. And they also have the pockets and the military to promote that. They are willing to go to war. And let's not forget this. Saudis are willing to go on bombing missions together with American and Israeli aircraft if it means that it weakens our Iranian enemies. Okay, so there is a completely different scenario where instead of being a negative war,
a coalition of anti-Iranian influence in this region, and Israel is part of that, and Saudi Arabia is part of that. So that's really encouraging.
That might be that this is the turning point of the year. That this year turns everything around in this region, and people say, enough of radical Islam, enough of the violence, enough mincing words with talking about the evil that is the evil of our time. Let's take a strong stance against it. These are countries that have money, they have air forces, they have military, they have naval forces. They have the ability to make a difference. And together with a very bold and strong and unpredictable Trump administration, that could be an incredible future for the state of Israel and its interest in this region.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Mati, I wish you a great 2025. To you, Tomer,
and everyone
to
else.
all of you. Thanks for standing with us. Please like, share, subscribe, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen to that. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org.
With regard to how tough to be with Hamas.
Welcome to TV in Israel, the podcast. I'm Yair Pinto, and I'm sitting here with Mati Shoshani, the one and only.
I'm here with Yair, the second and only, since that's our joke. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to be here. And every time we start with a little bit of introduction of what's going on. Today we're going to talk about the floating pier that is being developed and built on the shores of Gaza. And we're going to dive deeper into what is that, how is it going to operate, what's the purposes of this, and who is in charge of making sure this does not turn into a disaster by Hamas terrorists taking over or something like that. Okay, so that's the topic for today. We are in a podcast, so we have a lot of time to discuss the issues.
Almost all the time in the world.
Yeah, it's also never enough. But today we're going to focus on this topic, the pier on the Gaza shores, and to see the advantages, the disadvantages, the problems, and how it can help end this conflict and help the civilians, basically.
I mean, I think this topic is exactly the type of reason we created the podcast.
Exactly.
Because it's not something you can explain in a couple minutes. It requires like a deeper dive into the content and understanding why this is happening, not just how.
Yeah.
The why behind it, the nuances of the relationships and the international organizations and the U.S. government relations with the Israeli government.
Cyprus government.
Cypriot government.
Yeah.
There's so much going on here. If you care about what's happening here in Israel and want to learn more about this kind of content, we need you to get behind what we're doing here on the ground. And to do that, we need people to donate to help fund these operations. And the way to do that, well, there are several ways at least to do that. Go on our website and follow the link. Or on the bottom of this video, or the pages of our Facebook page, our podcast page, or anywhere else where we have content officially, you'll find a link that you can follow to support this kind of work. We have a lot of ideas that we want to do, I mean more than we have time to share, and we want people to get behind it. We want to know people care, so even if it's a small amount every month, it goes a long way in helping us continue to create engaging content about the truth of what's happening here in Israel.
If you like to see more content of what we're doing here in Israel, what is happening in this region in the Middle East, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, TBN Israel, and then you will receive all our updates on a daily basis. It will also help us reach more people. And what we do here is share the truth of what is happening. Mati was in the army for 7 months. I was in the army just now for 4 months. Both of us are still officers in reserves. And we really care about what is happening here, and we want to share the truth with you back at home. So please join us and help us sharing the truth.
But maybe we start in sort of from the beginning. You know,
Yes.
we've sort of lay the ground for what's going on. We've been at war in the Gaza Strip since the October 7th events, where Hamas attacked Israel, and since then, from day one, it's even before the war, there's a humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. There's a humanitarian crisis because it's a poor region of the world.
In general, people are poor there, and it's not easy to live.
Exactly, unrelated to this war.
Yeah.
And the war, in sort of an obvious way, harms the flow of goods into the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, before the war also there was, connections between Israel and Gaza, workers, trade, agriculture, and other stuff that were halted because of the Hamas attack against the Israeli community.
Yeah, and if people would see the images, and I hope we can put them on the screen, but I'll say this for those who are listening in audio form. Before the war broke out, the Gaza crossings between Israel and Gaza, several of them, in between Egypt and Gaza, those are the official ones, are also the unofficial ones, which we'll talk about in a different podcast. But the official ones looked like a very busy border crossing. Every day of the week, nonstop, piles and piles of trucks crossing the border with every kind of goods that you can imagine in the world.
I was there. I saw Mercedes cars being transferred into the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because people need to understand this isn't like, it's not just like rice and meat and you know the basic necessities. This was like, if you imagine the Mexico-USA border crossing, just like lines and lines of trucks loaded with every goods you can imagine in the world, coming into the Gaza Strip on a daily basis, but also going the other direction.
Yes.
Also goods from the Gaza Strip entering into Israel, some to be sold within Israel, and some to be sold outside of Israel through Israeli ports.
Yeah.
So there was a very, I don't want to say vibrant because it sounds too positive, but there was a lively trade industry going in and out of the Gaza Strip every day. And when the war broke out, obviously that trade was disrupted. And from day one, the US government, the Israeli government, and international aid organizations realized that there's a problem here and that the problem cannot be resolved with the existing border crossings, and we need to find other solutions to bring in food and necessities into the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, another very important point to mention is that almost since the beginning of this war, Israel has been operating border crossings with the Gaza Strip in order to allow for humanitarian aid trucks to go inside Gaza.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, hundreds of trucks.
Yes.
I mean, every day, from the Erez crossing, from the Kerem Shalom crossing, and other crossings, depending on security considerations. And just a few weeks ago, Hamas terrorists launched rockets and missiles
on one of the crossings.
Hit one of the crossings that provides humanitarian aid for the Gazan civilians, and also killed and wounded Israeli soldiers in the process. So it's clear that Hamas has an interest in making the civilians of Gaza suffer, because then the international community is putting pressure on Israel to stop the fighting against Hamas.
Yeah.
That's what they've been doing since the beginning of this war. It's another form of using the civilians as their human shield.
Yeah, human shield, and I'd call it sort of the international diplomacy shield.
Yes.
I mean, they thrive on the suffering of the Gazan people, and this port, this pier that was built off the coast of Gaza is exactly the solution to that. So we laid the ground, before the war. You have a lot of goods coming in and out of the Gaza Strip, and when the war breaks out, there was a difficulty, at least in the first couple of weeks, to bring in sufficient amounts of food, specifically not just through the border crossing, but also to distribute the food into a population that's moving around the Gaza Strip.
And that's hard, because
logistically.
Hamas is the one in charge of distributing the food. So, of course, they have an interest in taking the food for their own terrorist militants, as well as selling it to the civilians at a very high cost.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point to delay on, is that the Hamas is not like any other government where the good of the people is the primary objective. It's not a secondary or tertiary objective. It's somewhere down the list. For them, it's a way to make money. So they systematically were hijacking the convoys of aid coming into the Gaza Strip, not once, not twice, on a daily basis. They were shooting at protesters or people that were trying to come and receive aid. Multiple times they tried to blame Israel for it, more than once.
Hamas terrorists with guns on the aid trucks, aid supplies, immediately once they entered.
And they would confiscate them and then resell them at an incredibly high premium price.
Definitely.
And so all this is the background to why this pier exists. So early on in the war, I think this was even in November, we were having discussions internationally and publicly about the topic. The American government, in cooperation with the Cypriot government, Cyprus, yes. Their president comes up with this idea, and he presents it in international aid organizations of let's build another port in the Gaza Strip and use that as a way to distribute aid directly into Gaza, and not in a roundabout way that can be, apprehended by Hamas or other criminal organizations within the Gaza Strip.
Well, that's super complicated, because who is responsible for distributing the aid to the Palestinian civilians themselves? Because Hamas is still the one governing all the administrations and all the civil organizations or stuff like that in the Gaza Strip. So
that problem hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
Many organizations have tried to deal with it and thought about it, and in the end, everyone we're working with in the Gaza Strip, everyone the American government's working with, everyone the different UN agencies are working with, and them themselves are imperfect.
Yeah.
But there's no one else who can do it, so we're sort of working with the people who exist. Yeah. But let's give sort of a background to what this pier is. So leave it to the Americans to be the ones to have the engineering capability of building, in the middle of a war, building a pier off the coast of a war zone.
A floating pier.
Pier off the coast of a war zone. And what they did, and if you've seen the images, and if you haven't seen it and you're only listening to this podcast, Google it. It's nothing short of incredible.
Yeah.
The American Engineering Corps, the American Army, built an enormous pier, about 500 meters, so let's say a little more than 500 yards, off the coast of Gaza. And in addition to that, they built a floating dock that's, say, 3 to 5 miles out in sea that receives large ships coming from Cyprus to receive big piles of aid, put them on smaller vessels. So I'll explain the process.
Yeah.
You have in Cyprus. So it's Cypriot, so Cyprus government, along with the American army, they built a, let's call it a scanning facility. They scan and clear hundreds of trucks worth of goods every day of the week.
And they do that in order to prevent from weapon smuggling, drugs, human trafficking, and other stuff to be transferred into the Gaza Strip.
Exactly. And so they do that. So then Israel has an assurance that we're not, funding the Hamas terrorist apparatus while the war is going on.
Yeah, AK-47s or stuff like that.
So they clear, and that happens. That always happened in the past. It wasn't a rare occasion. So the Americans and the Cypriot government, they're clearing these goods that are coming off the coast of Cyprus onto American naval vessels. And then those vessels travel several hundred miles that it takes to get close to the coast, but they don't make it all the way to the pier. They stop about 3 to 5 miles out in sea on a floating dock that exists at sea. And they unload shipping containers and trucks onto a floating dock, which is incredible in my mind. There's a sketch that we found online that explains it. It's, as far as like engineering goes, it's very, very impressive.
And the speed that they built it.
Yeah, and they built this all during the war. And then from that floating, platform that's at sea, several miles out, smaller naval vessels that can come into shallow waters, come and load up trucks with goods on them. So not just goods, they load up trucks with goods and then bring them to a pier that's on the coast of Gaza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then from the pier that is on the coast of Gaza, it goes to the Gaza shore, where there's kind of a military base or something like that is Israel is in charge of the security of that port, and there the trucks go to the United Nations and other aid organizations that are in charge of distributing these trucks and this aid to the Gazan civilian population in the Gaza Strip. So that's how it goes. So no American soldier is on the Gaza shores. They are in charge only of logistics, and then Israel is in charge of the security of these trucks in Gaza, and then the United Nations is in charge of distributing all these trucks and the aid to the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
Okay? I see that the weak point in all of this structure is after it leaves the IDF's hand. Basically, from the moment that the UN organizations and other humanitarian organizations take the trucks, I see that as the weak point, because from that point, Israel is not involved in making sure that the food actually goes to the civilians and not taken over by gangs, by Hamas terrorists or other, non-friendly organizations in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I see, but it's better than what we had before.
I think that's exactly the point. I think everyone has come to terms with the fact that it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So as long as we are addressing the supply side of things and flooding the Gaza Strip with food and goods to keep people healthy, so medicine, shelter, tents and stuff like that, and the food to keep people healthy and alive, at least we're preserving or maintaining a status where people are alive and well.
Yeah.
Aside from the war side of things, not to be negative about it. But yes, the Hamas is always going to be a problem, and crime organizations taking over the goods are always going to be a problem. But we've heard, I think just yesterday, reports from Gazan journalists coming out that state that the prices of goods in the Gaza markets have gone down dramatically.
It means there's a lot of supply.
Yeah. It means that the goods are making it to their markets at a low cost. And I think that's the point. The point is that it makes it to the people at a price or for free in a way that they can afford to have food and the caloric intake that they need on a daily basis.
Well, that's
because before that, there were horrific images in my mind of like the most basic necessities. Like one chicken being sold for an amount of money that in Israel would be considered expensive, definitely in Gaza Strip during the time of war.
Yeah.
And other very basic goods were suddenly the price skyrockets, and people just can't afford to buy the most basic necessities.
Yeah.
I think there's another super important point here, and the point is that everyone is talking about the Israeli-American conflict in relationship between the presidents and President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu. And then when you see these kind of projects and you just for a minute go into the mind of what level of logistical cooperation is needed for a pier to be built in a war zone, supervised and protected by the Israeli army, and at the same time built by the American army, I think it's a very strong and clear message that the relationship is pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the coordination levels of orchestrating such a thing is like amazing. And the levels of trust between the militaries and between the people who are actually doing the work.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to mention that before this pier was constructed, we were always trying to find ways, the international community was always trying to find ways of transferring the food directly to the people.
Yeah.
So they tried also to deliver the food by air. They did like air shipments.
I remember that.
Yeah. And of course,
I'm laughing. It's sad, but it was also amusing at the same time.
it wasn't so successful, yes. Some of it went into the water, then we had reports of Gazans trying to swim to the aid and drowning.
Or it fell through a roof.
Yeah, or it like fell, the parachute did not open, and then it fell really fast on the people. And stuff like that.
But I think it shows these events show how complex the relationships are, where the U.S. government is trying to support the Israeli government in a time of war, but at the same time is not blind to the need of the people of Gaza.
Yeah.
And they understand the restrictions on a logistics level and on a political level, and they've done a lot to try and bring in aid while still aiding the Israeli government. So they've done airdrops, they've done, they've tried bringing in convoys of trucks, and they were stolen by Hamas, and et cetera, et cetera. And, the aid was sent in through the Sinai Peninsula into Gaza, but was all pretty much confiscated on the way by Hamas.
Immediately. Yeah, we have the images. It's like immediately when it crossed the border into Hamas. Now the IDF is in control of that border crossing, so the situation is a bit different, but this is a different podcast that will
we'll talk about that in a separate podcast. But then, so what is the U.S. doing? The U.S. is solving a problem for Israel, where and for the people of Gaza, at a huge financial investment. They're trying to help make sure that enough food gets to the people of Gaza, and it comes in also from a different side of the Gaza Strip. So not just through the east or the northeast or the eastern border. The southern border is pretty much closed up right now. So they're through the central part of the Gaza Strip on the western coast, bringing
next to Gaza City.
Yeah, next to Gaza City, bringing in additional goods, and they're bringing them all the way into Gaza. So it makes them much easier to distribute internally. And I think that on the logistical side, that's incredible. On helping the aid organizations within the Gaza Strip, it's incredible. I mean, a lot of their challenges were, and they said this openly, UN organizations, we're doing what we can within the limited constraints of the Hamas controlling this area.
That's a hard statement, basically. But who's funding all this? We know that the United States is funding a majority of it. Do we have the United Nations? Which Arab nations are also involved? I know that the United Arab Emirates is a big sponsor of all this funding of the pier, of the aid shipments. They are funding an initial aid shipment to test the sea route, to see how it goes. So that's actually very interesting to see how will it go, like from A to Z, the whole process. And as we always like to think, what do they have to gain from this? The United Arab Emirates. So some things that come up to mind is that if this port succeeds and the situation in the Gaza, calms down, Israel destroys Hamas, there is somebody else there, this can potentially be a very good economic, gateway to Israel to deliver goods for commerce, and other players can join into this region, because if the United Arab Emirates have kind of a port in Gaza, then they have access to this part of the region and to the Mediterranean Sea, and through this to Europe.
I think it's a combination of agendas. One is, yes, people always are, or countries are always fighting for power, and power often comes in the shape of a stakehold in a different area, be it in political or financial influence. But I think just objectively and honestly speaking, many people around the world, the Israeli and American government included, are concerned with the well-being of the people of Gaza. And countries around the world, specifically in the European Union, have a push from their own societies to aid the people of Gaza. And they're doing it in whatever way they can. And so you see a coalition. It's not just the US, it's also the UK and several other countries who are funding the donations. Cyprus itself, which is not a very affluent country, has made its port available and all the logistical facilities available to help in this.
I'm sure that Cyprus is going to make some economic gains from operating this huge port that will deliver all this aid into Gaza. I mean,
but still, I think we don't need to be cynical about the fact that people do care about what's happening, and it's this is not the first time that countries around the world want to help a country in conflict and have the problem of not wanting to go through the governing body. I mean, this has happened in countless conflicts in the African continent, where you'd have like a military militia running a country or in the middle of a civil war, and the aid organizations don't want to be feeding or financing a terrorist organization. This happened countless times in recent years, and this is a really positive case study in my mind of how you can do this, and you can really aid the people, and you can do it almost without playing into the hands of the terrorist or rebel organization or strongman that leads the country.
But the only way to do it, as we can see, is by having a strong presence on the ground. I mean, you cannot do it remotely. It's like nobody wants to send the troops, but without troops on the ground or boots on the ground, you cannot really.
Unintended, huh?
Yeah. By the way, it's a great YouTube show. Just kidding. So you cannot really do it without having a presence on the ground. So that's what we see. But I wanted to think if we are all been, witnessing a big puzzle here, and this is one piece of it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say we're talking about the Abraham Accords, and the next step of the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia and other countries in this region in order to create this anti-Iran coalition.
Yeah.
And maybe the United States and other big players are placing this spear here as a step in order to create a big picture, a big game, a big cooperation here. And this is just me talking here out loud, because I think that the United States is thinking a few steps ahead, not just placing this spear here in order to solve the humanitarian aid problem, which will, we'll deliver 150 more trucks a day.
Yeah.
At the moment, we have more than 200 coming from other, border crossings. So it's not like 1,000 trucks. It won't be a huge, tremendous difference. It's good. But I think that this is part of a bigger plan, maybe an international organization that will be controlling or governing the Gaza Strip, and this is the first step of putting something there to defend it. Maybe this is part of a coalition with other countries that will govern that region instead of Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or Israel, something on that line.
What you're describing is always the challenge in these kind of conflicts, where there is no clear solution.
Yeah.
Like if, and many people want a simple answer. Well, how do we solve the war? There is no answer. Like it's so many layers of answers to that question, and many of them have so many sort of milestones leading to anything that would be a peaceful resolution that there is no clear answer. And sometimes, and this is one of those cases, the best thing you can do is solve the problem at hand, and then hope and believe that this solution will present the next step, and then hopefully that solution will present the next step. And I'll explain what I'm saying. Israel and the United States and several other countries have been looking for a way. So I'll say this from a different perspective. I think very few people who are of a sound mind, let's put it that way, would say that a reasonable solution to this conflict is allowing Hamas to continue to rule the Gaza Strip in the same way they did before.
Well, I say many people in campuses would think that that's the best thing in the world.
But I said people of a sound mind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very few people would look at a terrorist organization who's bent on the murder of children, and the systematic rape of women and taking hostages. I mean, it's just a brutal terrorist organization. Very few, and it's been terrible to its own people for generations at this point.
Yes.
So very few people look at that and say, well, clearly this is the solution. But there is no other solution because of the nature of a dictatorial, terrorist regime.
Yeah.
So everyone's looking at it and saying, well, who can we raise up as the next leader generation? And such an option doesn't exist because of the nature of Hamas.
Yeah.
So all you can do is say, okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to solve the food problem, and we're going to solve the supply problem for now, and we hope that that presents another solution which will allow someone else who isn't Hamas to gain strength in the form of governance, in the form of food distribution, in the form of humanitarian aid. And maybe that's a coalition of, let's call it Emirati, Saudi,
Western,
other Gulf countries that sort of like play together. Maybe it's international aid organizations. Maybe it's a international observer force that's all of those parties together. And maybe they can be the next step after the food issue is sort of like not put to rest for good, but at least temporarily resolved.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the solution. And then from there, you say, okay, maybe we can work from here to the next thing. Because the end result is it's invisible to us at this point.
Yeah, we don't see the end result. I don't see a way of us exiting the Gaza Strip with our troops at all. I think that a very important topic to go to now is the Israeli concerns surrounding this port.
Yeah.
It presents another concern. Of course, we have other countries in charge of transporting and making sure that these aid shipments are not filled with rockets or materials that can be used to create more rockets. Because we know that underneath the Gaza Strip, and we've seen it, there are factories that manufacture rockets, missiles, bombs, and other ammunitions that are used and will be potentially used again in the future against Israel.
Yeah, and these concerns are well-based, because every time we've had a conflict with the Gaza Strip in the past, none of them have been extreme to this degree, but every time we've had efforts to rebuild the Gaza Strip, and there have been many, there have been thousands of trucks, and I need this to be a clear statement, countless amounts of concrete and rebar and goods and materials that are supposed to be used for agriculture, and all of them end up being used for one single purpose, with a sub-purpose. Well, the single purpose is the facilitation of terrorism infrastructure, building tunnels, building fortifications to military positions in the Gaza Strip, building attack tunnels into the country of Israel from the Gaza Strip. And the materials that are supposed to be used as, let's call it agricultural aid, are converted because of the chemical compounds that are in them, converted into rocket fuel or explosives. So this entire economy, and this is an ongoing and repetitive problem, is every time Israel allows aid into the Gaza Strip, Hamas says, perfect, that's exactly what we needed to get ready for the next war.
Yeah.
Not once has there been a situation where they said we're going to use these materials coming in to rebuild the homes destroyed, or to rebuild infrastructure, or to rebuild factories, or to build a power plant or a water purification plant. That never, ever happens.
Yes.
And so the concerns on the Israeli side are very valid, and that's where having a friend and an ally like the American government, and Cyprus in this case, who are true to their word and truly screening everything that comes from Cyprus into the Gaza Strip, gives us the peace of mind to allow as much of it that can make it through to come on a daily basis.
Yeah,
because we know we can trust what they're saying.
And also, on the Israeli side, we have a very speedy checkup to make sure that the supplies are indeed cleared without weapons and stuff like that, but it's very limited. So majority of the screening process is done, like I would say 90-something% of it is done in Cyprus with huge machines that scan everything and bring it here to us.
Yeah, and I think, again, we have as Israelis sometimes this mindset, I think many countries have, of, we can do this on our own. And the reality is we live in a global village. That's a term that's thrown around a lot. But the truth is that you need friends. That's both true on a personal level, but also on a national level. A man or a country cannot live on their own. You need people to support you, need people to help you. And in this case specifically, it is a problem well beyond the scope of what Israel can deal with, definitely in a safe and ongoing basis. We need the aid and we need the help of the American and the international community, and we've received that aid. And I think outside of these statements to
stop the weapon supply and the big bombs and all this stuff.
Outside of what people say in press conferences, there are good people around the world. And there are good people in governments around the world who do care about the well-being of people, period, both Jewish Israelis and also the people of Gaza. And those people can understand that there's a nuanced reality that we live in.
Yeah.
The nuanced reality says Hamas must be destroyed, Hamas must be stopped, but we don't want to starve the people of Gaza in the process. Hamas wants to do that.
Yeah.
The international community does not want to do that.
And to prevent that from happening, they will go to great lengths, like creating this incredible engineering feat, a floating pier off the coast of Gaza in the middle of a war, to supply the people of Gaza with food and goods to keep them alive and healthy during this war when Hamas is actively trying to prevent them from doing that.
And by the way, Hamas launched, 2 attacks, according to what we've seen, against this construction of the pier. So that's also very important to note. We see Hamas actively trying to prevent humanitarian aid from reaching the Gazan civilians and citizens.
And I don't think we have to sugarcoat the situation. Hamas would be happy if there were images of starving children in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, we've also seen studios of them manufacturing atrocities